You saved my mom at that motel 20 years ago. Teen girl told the Hells Angel. He broke down. You saved my mom at that motel 20 years ago. The sentence hit the booth like a thrown bottle. The man in the corner didn't jump. He locked up, coffee halfway to his mouth, eyes suddenly empty and wide like the past had walked in on its own legs. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. He wore a faded leather cut, road dust ground into the seams, gray beard, heavy shoulders, hands scarred by knuckles and engines. A Hell's Angel winged patch sat on his back like a warning sign. He stared at the girl standing over his table, trying to decide if she was a joke or a trigger. You got the wrong guy, he said. No, she answered, voice trembling but stubborn. I found the right one. Rook. The name was a test. Her mother had whispered it like a prayer and a warning at the same time. His eyes sharpened. Don't call me that. So it is you. The diner kept pretending to be normal. Forks clinked, the neon open buzzed, yet half the room had turned their heads. In places like this, everyone listened even when they swore they didn't. The biker's gaze dropped to her backpack, then to her hands. What's your name? Maddie. And your mom? Maddie hesitated. Her mom had made her practice one line, nothing else. Maddie hadn't planned for questions. Lena Hart. His fingers tightened around the mug. Not a spill, not a shake, just a grip like he was holding something down. You don't say that name, he muttered, almost to himself. Maddie swallowed hard. She told me to find you. She said you were the reason I'm alive. His jaw worked once, then his gaze slid across the diner. Not casual, not curious. Counting exits, watching reflections, measuring who would move first. Near the front, a man in a county jacket sat alone, hat low, menu up. He hadn't turned around, but his posture was too still, like he'd been waiting for a signal. The biker's shoulders stiffened a fraction. Sit, he told Maddie. She slid into the booth, heart hammering. You're alone, he said. I'm fine. That wasn't a question. Maddie's cheeks burned. I just need to talk to you for 2 minutes. That's it. The biker didn't blink. 2 minutes turns into a body on the floor. It always does. Maddie stared at him, trying to understand how a sentence could sound like experience. My mom's in the hospital, she blurted. She's not doing great. She made me promise I'd come. I didn't even know your real name. Just Rook in a motel. His face twitched at the word motel like it was a wire pulled under his skin. Which motel? He asked. Maddie's throat tightened. Bluebird. Room 17. That finally cracked him. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no slamming fists. It was quieter than that. His shoulders dipped as if something heavy had been pressing on him and suddenly got heavier. His eyes went wet and furious at the same time, like he hated himself for feeling anything in public. He leaned closer, voice low. Who else knows you're here? No one, Maddie said quickly. I came alone. I didn't tell anyone because your mom told you not to. He didn't ask. He stated it. Maddie froze. How do you... Because she was smart, he said, and the bitterness in his voice sounded like respect mixed with pain. He reached under his cut and set a battered flip phone on the table, sliding it toward her. Call her. She's sleeping. Wake her. She can't... He cut her off with a look that made the word can't feel stupid. Call her. If she answers, I'll believe you. If she doesn't, you need to leave now. Maddie stared at the phone and shook her head. She told me you'd do this. She told me you wouldn't want to believe me. The biker's eyes narrowed. Then prove it. Maddie's hands shook as she opened her backpack. The biker's focus snapped to her fingers, that same weapons check attention. Even in a diner, even with coffee on the table, he was built for danger. What are you pulling out? He asked. A proof, Maddie whispered. She set a cheap plastic motel key tag on the table, worn almost white, a faded number, 17, a ghost of a name, Bluebird Motor Lodge. The biker went pale in a way Maddie didn't think was possible for a man like him. His breath caught, his lips parted like he had something to say and couldn't find the air for it. For one raw second, the tough mask slipped completely, like grief had been sitting right behind his ribs for 20 years, waiting for permission. Where did you get that? He said. My mom. She said you gave it back. She said you told her to run. His hand hovered over the tag, trembling. He didn't touch it. He looked at it like it could explode. That was supposed to be gone, he whispered. Maddie leaned forward, softer now. She never talks about it. Not really. She just wakes up some nights and says she can still smell that room. And then she says, your patch was the last thing she saw before she ran. The biker's eyes squeezed shut for half a second. When he opened them, they were full. I remember, he said. Enough. The county jacket man's menu lowered a little. Maddie saw his eyes in the window's reflection, fixed on her, recognizing, not surprised. Outside, across the rain-slick lot, a lifted truck sat with its lights off. A phone screen glowed faintly inside, like someone was filming or texting directions. Maddie's stomach dropped. Do you know him? The biker's gaze flicked to the reflection, then back to Maddie. His voice went flat. Don't look at him. That means yes, Maddie whispered. The biker slid out of the booth, smooth and quiet, and dropped cash on the table. Then he leaned close to Maddie, barely moving his lips. When I stand up, you stand up, he murmured. You walk like you belong with me. Head down, no running unless I tell you. Why? Maddie breathed. Because if you run, they chase, he said. And if they chase, they catch. He straightened. Maddie stood with him. For 2 seconds, the room held its breath. Then a broad man near the counter turned fully toward Maddie, eyes narrowing like a memory snapping into place. He wasn't wearing a uniform, but he carried himself like someone who'd never been told no. Well, look at that, he said loud. It's her, the heart girl. The county jacket man stood fast, chair scraping. Let's not make this messy. But he was already moving. The broad man stepped in, reaching for Maddie's arm. You're not supposed to be here. Maddie backed into the booth, trapped by vinyl and fear. Her fingers crushed the key tag in her palm. The biker moved between them, voice calm, deadly. She's with me, the broad man smirked, eyes flicking over the biker's patches. Not in this county she ain't. You think your old colors scare people here? His hand shot out again. The biker's fist came up, one sharp punch to the throat. The man folded, choking, crashing into a stool. Chaos detonated. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped. The waitress dropped a tray, ceramic exploding across the floor. Move! The biker snapped at Maddie. He dragged her toward the kitchen, shoving through the swinging door into steam, stainless steel, and shouting cooks. Maddie's shoes skidded on wet tile. A cook shoved a pot off a burner in panic, water splashing everywhere. Behind them, the county jacket man barked, "Stop!" like the word carried a badge. It didn't. The biker slammed a shoulder into the back door and it flew open. Rain slapped Maddie's face cold and hard. They sprinted across the rear lot. Footsteps pounded behind them. A flashlight beam sliced the darkness, sweeping left and right. The biker didn't head for his bike out front. Too obvious, too slow. He yanked Maddie behind a dumpster, pressing her down as the flashlight swept past. So close, Maddie could see water droplets glittering in the beam. A voice called out, calm as a knife. Just give us the girl. We can talk. Maddie bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. The biker leaned to her ear. If they got your face, he whispered, they'll never stop. Maddie's throat tightened. I didn't mean to. I know, he cut in, but it doesn't matter. The flashlight swung away. Footsteps moved toward the fence, searching wider. Somewhere out front, an engine started up. The biker grabbed Maddie's wrist and pulled her low and fast toward a rusted side gate. Beyond it, a battered pickup sat under a sagging awning like it had been waiting. He shoved Maddie into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and jumped in. The engine coughed, then roared. Maddie looked up just in time to see the county jacket man round the corner, rain streaming off his hat. His arm lifted, something dark in his hand. The biker gunned it. Tires screamed on wet gravel as they shot onto the side road. In the mirror, headlights flared to life behind them. If you came here alone, the biker said, eyes locked forward now, voice tight, you already messed up. Rain hammered the windshield like gravel. The wipers couldn't keep up, and the headlights behind them stayed glued to the road, too steady, too patient, like whoever was driving had done this before. Maddie kept twisting around in the seat. They're still there. I know, Rook said, hands locked at 10 and 2, knuckles pale. Stop looking. How am I supposed to not look? By breathing and keeping your head down. The pickup fishtailed as he took a hard turn off the main strip and onto a darker back road. Trees closed in, no streetlights, just wet blacktop and the occasional reflection of a fence post. Maddie clutched the motel key tag so tight it bit into her palm. I swear I didn't think any of this would happen, Rook's jaw flexed. That's the problem. You thought it was a story. The tail's headlights dipped, then surged closer. The engine note rose. Whoever it was wanted them to know they weren't getting away. Rook cut the lights. Maddie's breath caught. What are you doing? Trust me. The world went dark except for the faint gray of rain and sky. The road became a ribbon you could barely see. Rook drove by memory and feel, steering like he could read the asphalt through the tires. The headlights behind them wavered, searching, then flared bright as the other driver hit their brights. For a second, Maddie was sure they'd slam into them. Rook waited until the last possible heartbeat, then yanked the wheel into a narrow gravel cut between two stands of pine. The truck lurched, gravel sprayed, branches slapped the sides. Maddie screamed without meaning to. Rook didn't slow. He threaded through the trees and burst into an empty service lane that paralleled the highway, hidden behind a berm. The headlights on the main road flew past, still hunting the darkness where they thought the pickup had gone. Maddie stared, shaking. How did you— Because this county only has 3 kinds of roads, he said. The ones they watch, the ones they own, and the ones they forget. He kept driving another half-mile, then pulled under a rusted metal awning beside a shuttered way station. The roof drummed with rain. The place looked abandoned. No lights, no cameras, no cars. Rook killed the engine but didn't move right away. He listened. Maddie listened too, hearing only rain and her own heartbeat. Then, far off, tires hissed on wet pavement. A vehicle slowed on the highway, slowed too much. Rook leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the darkness beyond the awning. Keep quiet, Maddie whispered. Are they— Quiet. The vehicle on the highway rolled past, then rolled back. Maddie could tell by the sound, slow, cautious, like someone scanning for a turnoff. Rook reached under the seat and pulled out a small, ugly thing that made Maddie's stomach drop. Not a gun, worse in a different way. A compact, heavy tool with a strap, a tire thumper, something meant for close work. Maddie's voice cracked. You're going to hit someone? I'm going to make sure you don't get dragged out of this truck, he said. That's what I'm going to do. The sound on the highway stopped, engine idling. Then a door creaked. Maddie pressed herself into the seat, frozen. A flashlight beam swept over the berm in slow arcs, searching the weeds. It didn't reach them under the awning, but Maddie could see the glow moving, methodical. Rook lowered his window an inch and listened harder. A voice drifted through the rain, casual like it belonged anywhere. Come on out, we're not mad, just want to talk. Rook's face didn't change, but Maddie felt the air in the cab tighten. Another voice answered from farther away, sharp. Check the cut, he had to go somewhere, Maddie mouthed. Who is that? Rook didn't answer. He was watching the berm like a hunter watches tall grass. The flashlight passed again, closer this time. Maddie held her breath until her chest burned. Then Rook reached across her, popped the glove compartment, and shoved something into her hands. A small black phone. Not the flip phone from the diner. This one was slimmer, newer, with a cracked corner. If they open your door, he whispered, you dial 1 and hit speaker, understand? What's 1? My people, he said. And don't say anything else. Just breathe into it. Maddie nodded, hands shaking so badly the phone clicked against her teeth when she tried to hide it against her chest. The flashlight beam paused. Maddie heard wet footsteps in the weeds. Rook's hand tightened around the thumper. A silhouette climbed the berm, slow and confident. The flashlight angled down. The person was looking for tracks, tire marks, broken brush. The silhouette took one more step. Rook moved. He shoved his door open and stepped out into the rain like he belonged there. He didn't rush. He didn't lunge. He just appeared, big, solid, and calm. The silhouette startled, the flashlight jerking up. Rook didn't give him time to think. He strode forward and hit him once, hard, clean, right in the gut. The man folded with a wet grunt, flashlight dropping and spinning in the grass. Rook grabbed him by the collar and dragged him down off the berm, keeping him low. Maddie watched through the windshield, eyes wide, as Rook hauled the man behind the awning where the highway couldn't see. Listen, Rook hissed, pinning him against the metal post. Who sent you? The man coughed, rain pouring off his cap. I don't— Rook pressed the thumper into his throat just enough to make the lie die. The man's eyes flicked to Maddie in the cab. You shouldn't have brought her back. That was all Rook needed. His face went cold. So you do know her? The man tried to smile through panic. Everybody knows that face if they've lived here long enough. Rook leaned closer, voice like steel. Who's watching the hospital? The man's smile vanished. He swallowed against the thumper. Man, you don't want to say that name out loud. Rook's eyes narrowed. Say it. The man's gaze slid away. Sheriff's got eyes on it. Not just him, the whole chain. They've been waiting for something to move. Maddie felt her stomach turn. Hospital, she whispered, not realizing Rook could hear her. Rook's head snapped toward the cab for half a second. What hospital is your mom in? St. Agnes, Maddie said quickly. In Dry Creek. Rook's grip tightened on the man. Dry Creek's not your town. Maddie swallowed. We moved. She said we couldn't stay. Rook stared at her like he was seeing the shape of the trap finally click into place. The man coughed again, forcing words out. It doesn't matter where you move, not when he still owns the dirt. Rook shoved him down into the mud. Get back to your friends, he muttered. Tell them the girl isn't walking into their hands tonight. The man blinked fast. You're making it worse. Rook's voice dropped. It's already worse. He turned and walked back to the cab. Maddie watched him climb in, rain streaming off his shoulders, breathing controlled like nothing happened, like he hadn't just dragged a stranger into the mud. Start talking, he said, flipping the headlights back on, engine turning over. Right now, from the beginning. Why did you come here? Maddie's throat felt raw. I told you, my mom— No, Rook snapped, sharper than before. Why now? Why alone? And why a diner in this county? Maddie blinked back tears. Because she's scared. And she's sick. And she said if anything ever happened to her, I had to find you before the people from the motel found me. Rook's eyes stayed on the road as he pulled out from under the awning and rolled deeper into the back lanes. What people? Maddie stared at the windshield, watching rain smear the world. She never said. She'd shut down if I asked. She'd just say, don't ever go near Bluebird. And then she'd look at me like I was the reason she kept breathing. Rook swallowed hard. His voice came quieter. She left you something. Maddie hesitated. Rook glanced at her once. Don't lie to me. Not tonight. Maddie reached into her backpack and pulled out a flat envelope wrapped in plastic, edges worn from being handled too many times. Across the front, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. For Rook, only. Rook's hands tightened on the wheel. You open it? No, Maddie whispered. She made me swear. She said if I opened it before you, it could get me killed. She said it's the only thing that could prove what happened in that room. Rook's nostrils flared. Prove it to who? She didn't say, Maddie said. She just said you'd know where to take it. And she said if you refused, I was supposed to tell you one more thing. Rook's jaw flexed. What? Maddie's voice trembled. She said, tell him I never forgot the sound of his boots in that hallway. Tell him he didn't just save me. He stopped them from taking my baby. The cab went so quiet, Maddie could hear the rain ticking on the roof. Rook's eyes went glossy again, but he didn't let anything fall. He blinked once, hard, like he was punching the feeling back into his skull. You don't know what you're carrying, he said. Maddie shook her head. I just wanted to say thank you, that's all. I didn't come to start a war. Rook exhaled through his nose. You didn't start it. He turned onto another narrow road, then another, cutting farther away from town lights. The landscape turned into black fields and thin woods. No houses, no help. Maddie looked around, panic rising. Where are we going? Somewhere they don't expect, Rook said. And then I'm taking you to your mom. Maddie's chest tightened. You'll come? I'm already in it, he said, like it was a fact. But listen to me, Maddie. If your mom said Bluebird and room 17, it means the man who owned that night is still alive. Maddie's skin prickled. Owned that night? Rook's voice went flat again, guarded. There are men who don't need to kidnap you in daylight. They don't need to chase you in the open. They just call a badge. They call a judge. They call a nurse. And you disappear clean. Maddie stared at him. You're talking like this is normal. It is, he said. In the wrong places. The cracked phone in Maddie's hands vibrated once. Not a text. A call. Rook's gaze snapped to it. Don't answer. The phone vibrated again, then again. Maddie's mouth went dry. What if it's my mom? Rook's voice sharpened. Your mom doesn't have this number. The phone stopped vibrating. For one breath, everything felt suspended. Then it rang again, louder, more insistent, like whoever was calling knew they were listening and wanted to make the point. Rook swore under his breath and snatched the phone from Maddie, eyes darting to the rearview mirror. A pair of headlights appeared far behind them, cresting a rise too steady to be random. Rook hit answer and put it on speaker without saying a word. Static. Rain. A faint hum like the call was routed through something cheap and careful. Then a voice came through, low, calm, smiling without warmth. "We see you." The voice on the speaker didn't raise, didn't threaten, didn't rush. "We see you." Rook didn't answer. He stared ahead like he could burn a hole through the rain and drive straight out of the past. Maddie sat frozen, the envelope damp against her chest, every hair on her arms lifted. The voice continued, almost conversational. "You always liked back roads. Still think you're clever." A soft click, like the callers smiled with their teeth. Rook reached over and yanked the phone's battery out with a brutal efficiency, tossing the dead device into the cup holder like it was poison. Maddie exhaled. "Who was that?" Rook's hand stayed steady on the wheel. "Someone who shouldn't have your name." "But how would they? They've had eyes on you longer than you think," he said. "Your mom tried to keep you small, quiet, invisible." Maddie swallowed. "She did." "And you walked into a diner and said Bluebird out loud," Rook snapped, not cruel but sharp with fear. "You lit up like a flare." Maddie's throat tightened. "I didn't know." Rook took a turn without signaling, not because he forgot, because he didn't care if anyone behind him knew his next move. He drove like he was cutting lines off a map. "Okay," Maddie whispered, "so what do we do?" Rook's jaw worked. "We get to your mom before they do anything stupid." "They wouldn't," Maddie said automatically, then heard how weak it sounded. Rook shot her a glance. "They already tried to grab you in public. Don't give them credit they don't deserve." A few miles later, he pulled into the shadow of a closed farm supply store. Lights were off, gravel lot empty. He killed the engine and sat for one beat listening. Nothing. He leaned across Maddie and popped her seatbelt. "Out," Maddie blinked. "What?" "Out," he repeated. "Now." The rain hit her like needles when she stepped into it. Rook moved fast, circling the truck, yanking open the bed cover. He grabbed a rolled tarp, a small tool bag, and, Maddie's stomach tightened, a second plate. Not a license plate like a spare. A different one. He knelt by the rear bumper and went to work. Hands practiced, bolts turning in seconds. In under a minute, the truck wore a new identity. Maddie watched, stunned. "You just have those?" Rook didn't look up. "You don't ride for decades and stay alive by filling out forms." He finished, stood, and wiped rain off his beard with the back of his hand. His eyes scanned the road. Then he opened the passenger door again. In. Maddie climbed in, drenched and shaking. Rook started the engine, pulled out, and drove like nothing changed, like they were just another truck on another wet night. But Maddie could feel the change. The way he kept to the middle of the lane, the way he checked mirrors not every few seconds, but every few heartbeats, the way he avoided the main entrances when the town lights finally appeared ahead. St. Agnes rose out of the rain like a dull, tired ship. White building, yellow windows, a fluorescent glow that made the whole place look sick even from the parking lot. Maddie's chest tightened. "She's here." Rook parked far from the entrance, under a tree that dripped constantly. He killed the engine. "Listen," he said, turning to Maddie. "If anyone stops you, anyone, what do you say?" "I'm visiting my mom," Maddie whispered. "No," he said. "You say you're lost. You say you're looking for radiology. You say anything that doesn't include her name." Maddie stared at him. "Why?" "Because names are doors," Rook said, "and you keep handing them out." Maddie nodded quickly, ashamed and terrified. Rook pulled his cut tighter and got out. When Maddie stepped into the rain again, she realized he wasn't walking toward the front entrance. He led her along the side of the building, past dumpsters and a service door with a keypad. He stopped in the dark and looked at the camera above it. "Don't look up," he murmured. Maddie kept her eyes down. Rook stepped into the camera's view anyway, just long enough for the lens to catch his face. Then he moved aside again. Maddie frowned. "What was that?" "Let them see me," he said. "Not you." He tried the service door handle, locked. He didn't force it. He just waited, watching. 30 seconds later, it clicked. A nurse stepped out, hair tucked under a cap, eyes tired. She froze when she saw him. Rook didn't smile. Evening. Her gaze flicked to Maddie. Who's that? Family, Rook said. The nurse's expression shifted, recognition of the tone, not the words. She glanced behind her into the hallway like she expected someone to appear. You can't, she started. Rook's voice stayed calm. You still owe Lena. The nurse flinched at the name and looked at Maddie again, more carefully this time, like a puzzle piece finally aligning. Oh my God, she whispered. Maddie's throat tightened. Is she okay? The nurse swallowed. She's awake, but you need to be quick. They've been asking about her all day. They? Maddie echoed, voice cracking. The nurse opened the door wider. Just come. They moved through a back corridor that smelled like bleach and old coffee. Rook walked half a step behind Maddie, head turning slightly at every intersection. Maddie noticed cameras everywhere, little black eyes in corners. The nurse led them to an elevator that required a badge swipe. Her hand shook as she used it. As the doors closed, she whispered, He was here earlier. Rook's eyes snapped to her. Who? The nurse hesitated, then forced it out. Deputy Ralston. He said he was doing a wellness check. He asked if Lena had any visitors. He asked if she had a daughter? Maddie's stomach dropped. How would he know? Rook's jaw clenched. Because he's not checking, he's hunting. The elevator dinged and opened on a quieter floor. The lights were dimmer. The air felt heavier. Maddie's footsteps softened on the carpet like the building was telling everyone to behave. They reached a room at the end of the hall. The nurse knocked lightly, then opened it without waiting. Lena Hart lay in the bed, smaller than Maddie remembered from a year ago. Her face was pale, lips dry, hair pulled back. A monitor beeped with a steady, indifferent rhythm, but her eyes were alive. They snapped to Maddie first, and Maddie felt the ground tilt. Mom. Lena's mouth opened. Her voice came thin but fierce. What did you do? Maddie froze. I came like you told me. Lena's eyes filled instantly, anger and relief colliding. You weren't supposed to come alone. I didn't, Maddie lied, then realized the lie was pointless because her mom's gaze had already moved past her. Lena stared at Rook. For a full second, nobody spoke. Then Lena's hand lifted from the blanket, weak, trembling, and reached out like she was trying to touch something she didn't trust to be real. Rook stepped forward, slow, as if sudden movement would break her. Lena, he said. His voice didn't sound like it did in the truck. It wasn't hard or sharp. It was raw, like a man who'd practiced being stone and forgot how to be human. Lena's breath hitched, tears slid down her cheeks without her wiping them away. You look older, she whispered. Rook huffed a laugh that wasn't a laugh. You too. Maddie's throat tightened so hard she couldn't speak. She'd imagined this reunion as gratitude, maybe awkward, maybe emotional. She hadn't imagined her mother looking at a biker like he was the line between life and death. Lena's gaze flicked to Maddie. Did you say it? Maddie nodded, voice cracking. I told him. I told him what you said. I showed him the tag. Lena closed her eyes for a second, breathing. When she opened them again, she looked at Rook like she was about to apologize for something too big to say. You shouldn't be here, she whispered to him. Rook's jaw tightened. Neither should she, Lena swallowed. They found her? Rook nodded once. Lena's face tightened with pain, not physical, something deeper. I tried to move. I tried to bury it. You can't bury rot, Rook said. Lena's hand trembled harder as she reached toward the side table. Maddie stepped forward to help, but Lena shook her head. No, Lena rasped, eyes locked on Rook. This is for him. With effort, she slid open the drawer and pulled out a small folded paper. Not a letter like Maddie expected, more like a note, creased, handled, hidden. She held it toward Rook with 2 fingers like it weighed 100 pounds. Rook took it, careful. Maddie watched his eyes move across the lines. Whatever he read made his throat work like he was swallowing glass. Lena's voice came quiet. I kept it because I knew one day I'd need you to remember. Rook stared at her. I remember every second. Lena's eyes hardened with something that looked like shame. Not everything. Maddie's pulse spiked. Mom, what is that? Lena looked at her daughter, and for a moment her expression softened into something heartbreakingly gentle. Honey, she whispered, I never told you the whole truth. Maddie's mouth went dry. What truth? Lena's eyes flicked to the door, to the hallway, to the cameras Maddie suddenly couldn't stop thinking about. Then Lena looked back at Rook. He didn't just help me run, she said. He stopped something that was already happening, something nobody wanted to see. Rook's eyes glistened, and he looked away like he couldn't stand being watched, even by Maddie. Lena swallowed, forcing breath. They were going to make it look like I disappeared on my own, like I chose it. Maddie's chest tightened. Who is they? Lena hesitated, and Rook answered for her, voice flat. The motel, the men behind it, the man who paid for silence. Maddie stared at him. The owner? Rook didn't nod. He didn't have to. His face said yes. Lena's eyes filled again. He still owns everything, she whispered. I thought if I kept quiet, if I stayed grateful and small, he'd forget. Rook's eyes snapped back to her. He doesn't forget. He collects. Lena's hand trembled as she reached toward Maddie, and Maddie took it, squeezing gently. I'm sorry, Lena whispered. I'm sorry I put this on you. Maddie shook her head fast, tears spilling. Don't, just tell me what to do. Lena looked at Rook. I don't have long, she said, voice steadying. So listen to me, both of you. Rook's shoulders squared like he was bracing for impact. Lena continued. There's a storage unit, Cedar Lane Storage, Unit 14. I paid cash under a different name. Rook's eyes narrowed. What name? Lena swallowed. Maris Cole. Maddie blinked. Who's that? Lena squeezed her hand. Nobody. Rook's jaw tightened. What's in it? Lena's voice dropped. The only thing that can burn him without him buying the ashes. Rook's eyes went hard. Evidence? Lena nodded once, exhausted by the word. And a key. It's taped under the bottom drawer in my old nightstand. Not here. At home. Maddie's mind raced. We can go. No, Rook cut in. Not you. Maddie snapped her head toward him. Why not me? Because your face is the reason they're moving, Rook said. You go anywhere alone again, you'll vanish. Lena's eyes widened suddenly, staring past Maddie's shoulder. Maddie turned. A man stood in the doorway. He wasn't in full uniform, just a county jacket over a button-down, badge clipped to his belt like an afterthought. Deputy Ralston, same hat, same too-still posture. His gaze slid from Lena to Maddie, then to Rook, and his mouth curved like he just found something he misplaced. Well, he said softly, stepping into the room. Look at this. Rook didn't move, but the air changed around him, tightened, coiled. Ralston's eyes settled on Maddie with unsettling familiarity. You look just like her. Deputy Ralston didn't rush. He didn't need to. He stepped into the room like he owned the air, letting the door swing shut behind him with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. His eyes stayed on Maddie, not Rook, like Rook was just furniture that happened to breathe. You look just like her, Ralston said again, quieter now, savoring it. Maddie's mouth went dry, her mom's fingers clenched around hers with a sudden strength, nails digging in. Rook didn't move from the foot of the bed. He didn't square up. He didn't puff out. He just stood there like a wall that didn't care how hard you hit it. Ralston's gaze flicked to Lena. Evening, Ms. Hart. Lena's voice came thin but sharp. Get out. Ralston smiled like he'd been asked to do something adorable. Just doing my job. Wellness checks, making sure nobody's causing you stress. His eyes slid back to Maddie. You shouldn't be out this late, sweetheart. Dry Creek's not a safe place for a girl who, he paused, pretending to search for the right word, attracts attention. Maddie felt her throat tighten. I'm visiting my mom. Ralston nodded as if she'd said exactly what he expected. Mm-hmm. And who's this? He finally looked at Rook, really looked. Recognition crossed his face in a flash, then smoothed back into that calm, oiled expression. Well, I'll be, Ralston murmured. You're still breathing. Rook's voice stayed low. You still lying, Ralston chuckled like the insult was familiar. Careful, hospital's a sensitive place. People get nervous when men like you show up. People like me? Rook asked. Ralston's fingers tapped his belt near the badge. Men who solve problems with their hands. Rook's eyes didn't blink. Men like you solve problems by making phone calls. The nurse who'd brought them in hovered by the wall, pale, terrified, trying to shrink into the paint. Ralston noticed her and tilted his head. You're off your floor, Karen. The nurse flinched at her name like it had been slapped onto her. I was just... Ralston cut her off with a look. Go. She hesitated, eyes darting to Lena, to Maddie, to Rook. Rook spoke without turning his head. Stay. Ralston's smile sharpened. He doesn't give you orders, sweetheart. I do. Rook's body shifted a fraction, barely a step, but the room felt smaller immediately. Maddie could feel her own pulse thudding in her ears. Ralston held up one hand. Relax. Nobody's here to fight. Then he leaned closer to the bed and dropped his voice, like he was doing Lena a kindness. We've had some concerns about visitors, about you getting confused, about you signing things you don't understand. Lena's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Ralston's gaze went to the bedside table, to the drawer Lena had opened earlier, to the small note Rook had just read. His attention was too precise. Maddie's stomach flipped. He knew, or he suspected enough to be dangerous. Ralston straightened and addressed Maddie again. Sweetheart, why don't you come with me to the nurse's station? We'll get you a warm drink. We'll call someone to pick you up. Maddie shook her head. No. Ralston's smile didn't move, but his eyes cooled. That wasn't a request. Lena tried to sit up, breath hitching. Leave her alone. Ralston didn't even look at Lena when he spoke. Ms. Hart, you need rest. Stress can do terrible things to a heart. Maddie felt her mom's fingers tremble. The monitor beeped a little faster. Rook's voice dropped into the kind of calm that made Maddie more afraid than shouting. You're done. Step back. Ralston's gaze slid to him. Or what? Rook didn't answer. He just looked at the badge, then at the camera in the corner, then back at Ralston. Ralston followed his eyes and smiled wider. Yeah, that's what I thought. He took one step toward Maddie. Rook moved, not a swing, not a punch. He closed the distance in one smooth motion, caught Ralston's wrist mid-reach, and pinned it against the doorframe with a pressure that made Ralston's smile flicker for the first time. Ralston's eyes hardened. You put hands on me in a hospital? I can bury you. Rook leaned in, voice almost gentle. You're already buried. You just don't smell it yet. Ralston's free hand went toward his belt. Maddie's breath stopped. Rook's grip tightened and Ralston froze, suddenly aware that if he escalated, it wouldn't end clean. Cameras or not, badge or not, Lena's voice came strained. Rook, don't. Rook didn't take his eyes off Ralston. You're not taking her. Ralston exhaled slowly, then eased his hand away from his belt. You think you're protecting her? His gaze flicked to Maddie. But you're the reason she's in danger. Rook's jaw flexed. I'm the reason she's still standing. Ralston's mouth twitched. That girl's been on somebody's radar since she learned to walk. Maddie's skin went cold. What does that mean? Ralston looked at her like she was naive. It means people don't forget what they're owed. Lena made a broken sound in her throat and squeezed Maddie's hand hard. Maddie, don't listen. Ralston lifted his chin slightly toward the hallway. I've got deputies outside. I've got security. I've got a nurse supervisor who owes me her job. You want to play hero? Go ahead. Rook held his stare. Call them. Ralston paused. The smile was gone now. You sure? Rook didn't blink. Call them. Ralston's eyes narrowed, recalculating. He wasn't afraid of Rook. He was afraid of what Rook would force him to do in front of cameras. He pulled his wrist free slowly, like he was allowing it, then stepped back. Fine, he said. Let's do this the polite way. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Rook spoke, fast and low, without looking back. Maddie, bag. Maddie snapped into motion, grabbing her backpack, the sealed envelope inside, her fingers clumsy from fear. Rook's gaze went to the nurse. Stairs. The nurse's lips parted. I can't, Rook's voice sharpened. Do you want him deciding what happens to that girl? The nurse's eyes filled. She swallowed, then nodded once. Ralston's phone was already at his ear. Yeah, it's me. I need... The nurse moved first, slipping out of the room and waving them urgently. Rook grabbed Maddie's elbow and guided her out, fast but controlled. Maddie glanced back once and saw Ralston still on the call, watching them go like he'd expected it, like he wanted it. The hallway felt too bright, too open. Maddie's shoes squeaked on the floor. The nurse led them around the corner and through a door marked staff only. Stale air hit them, concrete stairwell, the hum of fluorescent lights. Down, the nurse whispered. Don't stop. They took the stairs 2 at a time. Maddie's lungs burned. Her backpack bounced hard against her spine. On the landing below, the nurse shoved open another door into a dim corridor lined with carts and closed supply cabinets. "Service exit is at the end," she said, voice shaking. "But there's a camera," Rook cut in. "Let it see me." Maddie's voice cracked. "My mom." Rook's eyes flicked to her, pain flashing. "We come back when it's safe." "That's not safe," Maddie whispered. "That's never." Rook didn't answer. He grabbed a folded hoodie from a laundry cart, tossed it to Maddie. "Put it on. Hood up." Maddie pulled it over her head, swallowing the fabric smell of detergent and hospital bleach. They reached the service exit. The nurse punched a code with trembling fingers. The lock clicked. The door opened into rain and darkness. Rook pushed Maddie out first, then turned back. "Karen," he said. The nurse looked up, terrified. "You never saw her tonight," Rook said. "You never opened that door." Her eyes brimmed. "They'll ask." Rook nodded once. "Then you forget my face too." The nurse swallowed, then nodded, and the door shut. They moved fast along the building, keeping to shadows, the rain swallowing their footsteps. Rook didn't head for the parking lot. He took Maddie around the far side, under trees, past a fenced utility area. A car engine turned over somewhere near the front entrance. Maddie's heart jumped. "They're coming." Rook pulled her behind a utility shed and peeked around the corner. 2 deputies walked with purpose, flashlights out despite the hospital lights. One of them carried handcuffs openly, like a statement. "Stay here," Rook murmured. Maddie grabbed his sleeve. "No." Rook's eyes met hers. "If they see you, it's over." Maddie's throat tightened. "I can't lose my mom." Rook's expression hardened, but his voice softened. "You won't. Not if you listen." He slipped away into the rain. Maddie stayed pressed to the shed, shaking, listening to footsteps and voices. Ralston said he went out the back. "Check the lot." A flashlight beam swept over the grass, searching. Then, from the far side of the parking lot, a loud crash rang out, metal on metal, sharp enough to cut through rain. The deputies snapped their heads toward it. "What the hell?" Both moved toward the sound, fast. Maddie exhaled, realizing Rook had created it. A second later, Rook appeared, hand out. "Now." They ran. They cut across a strip of grass, through a gap in a fence, and into a darker side lot where the pickup waited under the dripping tree. Rook didn't unlock it with a remote. He used a key, old school, like he trusted nothing electronic. They got in. Rook started the engine and rolled out slow, casual, like a man leaving a hospital after visiting family. Maddie hunched in the seat, hood up, heart trying to climb out of her throat. In the rearview mirror, she saw Deputy Ralston step out under the entrance lights, phone pressed to his ear, watching the lot. He didn't chase, he just watched. Rook drove for several minutes without speaking. The silence felt like a held breath. Maddie finally broke. "He was waiting for me." Rook's hands tightened on the wheel. "He was waiting for movement." "Why didn't he stop us?" Rook's voice went flat. "Because he wanted to see where we go next." Maddie's stomach turned. "So what do we do?" Rook took a hard right onto a road lined with closed storefronts and wet sidewalks. "We don't go home." "But my mom said the key." "I heard," Rook said, "and I'm telling you, her place is burned." Maddie stared at him. "How do you know?" Rook glanced at her hooded face. "Because men like Ralston don't show up without checking the obvious first." Maddie's breath hitched. "So where do we get it?" Rook's jaw flexed. "We go to the place they think you'll never go, the place that started it." Maddie's voice came small. "Bluebird." Rook didn't answer, but the tension in his shoulders did. The town thinned behind them. The road darkened. Rain eased into a steady whisper. After 15 minutes, a faded sign emerged from the trees, lit by a single broken floodlight. Bluebird Motor Lodge. The parking lot was almost empty. A few cars tucked near the office, curtains drawn, a humming vending machine glow. The air felt wrong, like everything was staged to look normal. Maddie's skin prickled. "It looks renovated." "Paint doesn't fix rot," Rook murmured. He parked in the back behind a row of rooms with no cars outside them. He killed the engine. Maddie's hands shook. "What are we doing here?" Rook leaned across and grabbed her wrist gently but firm. "You're not leaving the truck unless I say." Maddie nodded, throat tight. Rook slid out into the rain, hood up now, moving low along the wall. Maddie watched through the wet glass as he crossed to room 17. The door looked new. New lock. New handle. Like the motel wanted to pretend history didn't touch it. Rook tried the knob anyway. Locked. He glanced up at the camera above the walkway. New, black, angled perfectly. He stepped into its view on purpose, then moved out again. Maddie's stomach dropped. He was doing what he did at the hospital. Let them see him, not her. Rook crouched by the doorframe and pulled a thin tool from his pocket. He worked the lock fast, controlled. The door clicked. He slipped inside. Maddie's breath fogged the window. She waited, trying not to imagine what was in there, trying not to smell a room she'd never seen but somehow already feared. A minute passed. Then, from the motel office side, headlights flared. A vehicle rolled into the back lot, slow, deliberate. Maddie ducked instinctively. 2 men got out, not deputies, no uniforms, just heavy jackets and confident movement. One carried a flashlight, even though the floodlight still worked. Maddie's heart slammed against her ribs. They weren't looking for a room, they were looking for a person. The men spoke quietly, but Maddie caught a few words through the rain and distance. Camera pinged. Him. Maddie's hands went numb on the dashboard. Rook still hadn't come back out. The men moved down the walkway toward room 17, flashlight beams sliding along doors like a finger. Maddie's throat tightened. She wanted to shout. She couldn't even breathe. The door to room 17 opened a crack. Rook slipped out, eyes sharp. He saw the men instantly. He didn't run. He stepped back into the room, pulling the door almost shut behind him, disappearing into the dark like he'd planned for this. The men reached the door. One of them lifted a hand to knock, then stopped, head tilting, listening. The flashlight beam swept over the number, 17. Then the man leaned in close and murmured, almost pleased, "He's in there." Maddie shrank lower in the seat, hood shadowing her face, as the men drew something dark from inside their jackets, and the flashlight beam steadied on the door. The man outside room 17 didn't knock again. He shoved the door, felt it give, and stepped in with his flashlight up like he owned the air. The beam swept the room, bed, nightstand, bathroom, then snapped hard to the left as if his wrist got yanked. A muffled grunt. The flashlight skittered across the floor. The second man rushed in behind him, swearing, already reaching inside his jacket. Rook hit the door back into the second man's forearm. Metal clacked. A gun bounced once and landed in the wet corridor. Rook stepped on it without looking down and drove an elbow into the man's mouth. The sound was all bone and breath. The man folded, coughing red. Maddie watched from the pickup, frozen under the hoodie, rain crawling down the glass. It wasn't movie violence. It was close and ugly and quiet, like 2 animals fighting in a drain. The first man tried to rise. Rook jammed a cheap metal pen against the soft spot under his jaw and twisted. The man's eyes went wide, body obeying immediately, dropping to his knees with a wet choke. A high electronic chirp snapped through the corridor. Camera alert. Rook's head lifted. He'd just started a clock. He hauled the first man inside, slammed the door almost shut, and ripped the nightstand away from the wall. Behind it, a small panel sat half loose, newer screws biting into older wood. He reached into the wall and pulled out something wrapped in tape, flat, small. He tore the tape with his teeth and revealed a tiny silver key and a strip of paper yellowed with age. He didn't read it. He stuffed both into his pocket, then scooped the dropped gun by the slide and flung it under the bed like it was trash. He grabbed the second man's phone off the floor, checked the screen once, and smashed it against the doorframe until it went dark. Outside, headlights rolled into the back lot, slow, deliberate, then more. Beams swept the rooms like hands searching. A flashlight snapped onto the pickup. It lingered. Footsteps splashed through puddles toward Maddie's door. Maddie slid lower, hood shadowing her face, and fumbled for the cracked phone Rook had given her. Dial 1. Speaker. Her fingers shook as she pressed call. 1 ring. A hard knock hit the driver's window. "Open up!" 2 rings. The handle tested. Once, twice, 3 rings. The call clicked. "Yeah?" A man answered, rough voice, instantly alert. "It's Maddie," she whispered. "I'm with Rook. Bluebird, back row. They're at the truck." A beat of silence. Then, "Stay inside. Don't run." "They're—" Maddie's breath hitched. "Stay inside," the voice repeated. "Where's Rook?" Before she could answer, room 17's door flew open. Rook came out low and fast, rain pouring off his shoulders, eyes locked on the lot. He didn't sprint straight at the truck. He cut behind the rooms, vanished, then reappeared at the corner like he'd been poured out of darkness. The man at the window turned too late. Rook hooked an arm around his neck and dragged him backward off balance. The flashlight beam swung wild, then died in the mud. Two more men rounded the office side, shouting, flashlights up. Rook snapped his fingers at Maddie. Now. Maddie shoved the door open and stumbled out, shoes slipping on gravel. Rook grabbed the back of her hoodie, yanked her upright, and shoved her into the passenger seat. "Seatbelt," he barked. She fumbled it, hands useless. Rook dove into the driver's side and cranked the ignition. The engine coughed. A gun came up in the rain, black against headlights. The engine caught. Rook gunned it. Tires screamed, gravel spraying. The pickup fishtailed toward the exit. A shot cracked. The rear window spidered in the corner, glass dust puffing into the cab. Maddie screamed and curled inward. Rook didn't slow. He slammed onto the road and killed the headlights again, letting the rain and dark swallow them. The pursuing beams overshot the turn once, then swung back, hunting. Rook took a dirt cut, branches slapping the truck, and kept going until the sounds behind them thinned into nothing but Maddie's ragged breathing. When he finally turned the lights back on, they were miles away, rolling through silent industrial streets. Maddie's voice shook. "You're bleeding." Rook's right shoulder was dark, soaked through. He glanced down once. "Grazed." Later, he turned into a backlot with blacked-out windows and a crooked sign. Tire and tow. He honked twice, then once. The bay door rose just enough for them to slip inside. It slammed shut behind them, cutting off the rain and the world. Oil and rubber hit Maddie's nose. Shadows moved, faces turned. Men in cuts, denim, ink. Not loud, not friendly, just watching. A tall biker with a braided beard stepped forward, eyes going straight to Maddie like she was a problem someone threw into his lap. "What the hell did you bring here?" he said. Rook got out slow, favoring his shoulder by a hair. "A kid who's going to disappear if she stays where she is." "We don't do kids," the biker said, "and we don't do heat." Another man, older, heavyset, leaned on a workbench. "You got followed?" Rook's gaze swept the room. They were waiting at the motel. They're in the hospital, too. At that, the tall biker's expression tightened. "Say who?" "Deputy Ralston," Rook said. Two heads turned sharply. Someone cursed under their breath. A guy near the back door moved and threw a chain across it, the metal clinking like punctuation. The tall biker stared at Rook. "You said that name in my shop." "He was in Lena Hart's room tonight," Rook shot back. Maddie flinched at her mom's name on their mouths. "You know her?" A younger biker near the tool chest laughed once, bitter. "Everybody knows the Hart mess." "Shut up," Rook snapped. Duke, because Maddie heard someone say it under their breath like an order, stepped closer to Rook, voice low. "You don't drag us into your ghosts." Rook's eyes burned. "This isn't a ghost. This is a leash and it's around her throat." The heavyset biker pushed off the bench, scanning Maddie like he was looking for a weapon. "What's she carrying?" Maddie instinctively hugged the backpack tighter. Rook answered for her. "Something Lena held onto for 20 years. Something she thinks can burn the man behind Bluebird." One of the bikers spat on the concrete. "He's got the sheriff." Rook's jaw tightened. "He's got Ralston doing his errands, and he's got cameras on that motel that pinged the second I touched the door." Duke's eyes narrowed. "So they know you were there?" "They knew the moment the alert hit," Rook said, "which means they're moving on her mom right now." Duke jerked his chin at a man with a med kit. "Patch him." The man came over and yanked Rook's jacket back, exposing the shoulder. Maddie saw the graze, angry red, shallow, but still bleeding. Rook didn't flinch as gauze pressed down. Duke watched Maddie while it happened. "Where's your dad?" Maddie's throat tightened. "I don't have one." Duke's gaze shifted to the envelope under Maddie's hoodie. "That yours?" "It's my mom's," Maddie said, voice shaking. "She told me not to open it." Duke looked back to Rook. "And you trust a kid with that?" Rook's eyes didn't leave Duke's. "I trust her more than any badge in this county." Duke's jaw worked. "You went back to room 17. Rook reached into his pocket and unfolded the strip of paper on the truck hood under the dim shop light. Old handwriting, a location, a number. Duke read it, and the color drained from his face. Rook held his stare. "You recognize it," Duke swallowed. "Cedar Lane Storage, Unit 14. The room shifted. Not curiosity, fear. Rook's voice went flat. That's where he keeps things he doesn't want seen. The older biker muttered, "That place is a black hole." Rook nodded once. "Then we go in and pull something out." Duke looked past Rook to Maddie again, then back. "And the key?" Rook opened his fist just enough to show the tiny silver edge, then closed it again. "I got it." Duke exhaled slow, like he was trying not to say no. "You understand what you're asking?" Rook stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm asking for a burner phone, a car that isn't mine, and 2 sets of eyes on St. Agnes until sunrise." Duke's stare held. "And if I say no—" Rook's expression didn't change, but his eyes did, harder, older. "Then I take the kid and walk into Cedar Lane alone." Silence sat heavy for a long heartbeat. Rook's gaze flicked to Maddie, warning and promise tangled together. Then Maddie's cracked phone buzzed in her pocket, one sharp vibration that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet. Every head turned. Maddie pulled it out with shaking fingers. Unknown number, a text, 3 words, glowing white on black, "Come alone, now." The text sat on Maddie's screen like a command carved into stone. "Come alone, now." Her fingers went cold around the phone. The shop felt smaller, tighter, like the message had sucked the oxygen out of the room. Rook saw it from across the bay. His gaze sharpened instantly. "Don't move." Too late. Duke was already stepping in, palm out. "Give me that." Maddie backed up a half step, clutching the phone. "It could be my mom." Rook's voice snapped hard. "Your mom doesn't text like that." "What if they have her phone?" Maddie shot back, panic making her brave. "What if they're with her right now?" Rook crossed the floor fast, shoulder still bleeding through the bandage. He didn't grab her. He looked her dead in the eye. "They want you alone because they don't want witnesses," he said. "They want you scared because scared people follow instructions." Maddie's throat tightened. "So we just do nothing?" Duke leaned closer, quiet but firm. "Kid, if you walk out that door, you won't come back." Maddie shook her head, tears burning. "You don't know my mom." Rook's jaw flexed. "I do." That stopped her for a beat. Rook lowered his voice. "Lena didn't survive by being reckless. If she's in danger, she'd never lure you into it." Maddie swallowed hard, fighting the urge to bolt anyway. "Then why are they texting me?" Rook held out his hand. "Give me the phone." Maddie hesitated, then placed it in his palm like she was handing him her heartbeat. Rook stared at the screen, then lifted it toward Duke. "You got signal in here?" Duke nodded toward a mounted booster by the ceiling. "Enough." Rook tapped once, twice, fast. "Track it." A younger biker, skinny, dark hair, grease under his nails, stepped out from behind a stack of tires. "I can't track a text without—" Rook cut him off. "Find the source tower. Find anything." The kid took the phone, already moving. Maddie's chest heaved. "We should go to the hospital." Rook's eyes flicked to her. "And do what? Walk in the front door and announce you're the prize?" Duke's voice dropped. "Ralston's got deputies posted. If you show your face, they'll escort you somewhere you won't be found." Maddie's stomach rolled. "So what do we do?" Rook didn't answer right away. He looked at the bay door, then at the men watching him, waiting. Finally he said, "We put eyes on St. Agnes. We don't go inside." Duke snapped his fingers. 2 bikers moved immediately, grabbing keys off a pegboard. Rook stepped closer to Maddie. "You stay here." Maddie's head jerked up. "No." Rook's voice went low and dangerous. "Yes." Maddie's eyes filled. "I can't just sit while they—" "You sitting is the only reason you're alive right now," Rook said. "If you go alone, you vanish. If you go with me, they shoot you in a parking lot and call it a tragedy." Maddie's breath hitched. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Rook's expression tightened, pain cutting through the toughness for a second. "Trust me." Duke stepped in beside Maddie, blocking the bay door with his body like a bouncer. "You heard him." Maddie looked at the men, leather, patches, hard faces, and realized none of them were joking. None of them were trying to be mean. They were scared. That made her more scared. Rook turned away, grabbed a hoodie from a chair and yanked it over his cut. He headed for the side door. Maddie moved on instinct, reaching for him. "Rook," he stopped, just for a breath, without turning. "If anything happens, you do exactly what Duke says." Then he was gone. The bay door stayed shut. The rain kept tapping the roof. Maddie stood there, shaking, listening to the silence between the tire stacks. Duke kept his eyes on her like she was a live wire. "Sit." Maddie didn't. "I can't." Duke's jaw worked. Kid, I'm not your enemy. Maddie's voice cracked. Then why does it feel like I'm trapped? Because you are, Duke said, blunt. Not by us, by the thing you brought back. Maddie's hands curled into fists. I didn't bring it back. It came for me. Duke didn't argue that. He just held her gaze. Then don't help it. The skinny biker at the booster swore softly. This text? It's local. Duke turned. How local? 2-mile radius, the kid said. Could be anywhere in town, but he frowned, tapping again. There's a repeat ping. Same number, same area. It's moving. Maddie's heart slammed. Moving where? The kid looked up. Toward here. A new sound cut through the shop. Tires on gravel outside, slow. Not a random car, a confident one. Every head in the bay lifted. Duke gestured once. The men moved like a practiced machine. One killed the interior lights, another chained the side door, another stepped behind a tool bench with something heavy in his hands. Maddie backed up, breath shallow. They found us, Duke's voice went flat, or they want us to think they did. The gravel crunch stopped. A knock hit the bay door. Not frantic, not polite, just a knock that said, "We're here." Duke didn't answer. The knock came again, then a voice through the metal muffled by rain. Maddie. Maddie froze. It wasn't Rook. It wasn't Duke. It was a woman, her mother's voice. Maddie, baby, it called softly. Open the door, please. Maddie's knees almost buckled. Mom? Duke's eyes went sharp. No. Maddie took a step forward on pure instinct. That's her. That's my mom. Duke grabbed her arm hard. Kid, listen to me. Maddie? The voice outside pleaded, trembling perfectly. They said they'll stop if you just come out. Please, I'm scared. Maddie's vision blurred. Mom, I'm here. Duke clamped a hand over Maddie's mouth so fast she yelped into his palm. He pulled her backward behind a stack of tires. Maddie thrashed, furious, terrified, muffled sobs punching into Duke's hand. Duke hissed into her ear. That is not your mother. Maddie shook her head violently, tears pouring. Duke tightened his grip. Your mom is sick. She's weak. She cannot stand outside in this rain and project her voice through steel. That's a recording. Maddie's eyes went wide. Outside, the voice changed, just slightly. The warmth drained. If you don't open the door, it said, calmer now, we'll do it the hard way. A new sound joined it, a metal squeal. Something being dragged. Maddie's breath hitched. Duke stared at the bay door, then at the men. Back exit, he murmured. One of the bikers shook his head. Chained, Duke swore. Then we make one. A sudden crash hit the bay door, heavy, deliberate. Another crash. The metal flexed. Maddie's heart hammered so hard it hurt. Duke leaned close to her, voice ruthless now. You stay behind that tire stack. Don't move unless I pull you. Maddie nodded, shaking. The bay door buckled inward with a third hit. A crowbar pried under the edge. Rain blew through the widening gap like cold breath. A face appeared in the slit, smiling, wet, eyes bright with pleasure. Found you, the man said. Duke lunged. The man stumbled back, but two more shapes filled the gap immediately. One swung something metallic toward Duke's head. Duke ducked and drove forward, smashing his shoulder into the door, slamming it back toward them. The metal groaned. The shop exploded into motion. Boots, grunts, tools hitting bone. A short, brutal storm of close-range violence that sounded like a garage being demolished. Maddie stayed behind the tires, hands over her mouth, trying not to make a sound. Then she felt it. Vibration in her pocket. Her own phone. Not the cracked one, her personal one. She hadn't even remembered it was there. She pulled it out, screen glowing. A new text. St. Agnes, loading dock, 5 minutes, alone. Maddie's throat went tight. She looked up at the chaos. Duke grappling with one man, another biker slamming a wrench into someone's ribs, the bay door half open, rain pouring in, no clear escape. And she heard her mom's fake voice outside again, quieter now, almost laughing. Come on, Maddie. You know where I am. Maddie's mind went blank in the way panic makes it blank. If her mom was at the hospital and someone was holding her, and the only thing they wanted was Maddie. Maddie slid sideways, crawling behind the tire stack, moving toward the back office door while everyone was focused on the bay. Duke didn't see her. He was too busy keeping the door from becoming a flood. Maddie reached the office, slipped inside, and shut the door quietly behind her. The office was dark, lit only by a flickering monitor and the red glow of a charging dock. A set of keys hung on a hook, a cheap raincoat on a chair. Maddie grabbed the raincoat and the keys without thinking. Her hands moved on pure survival. She pushed out the back office window into the rain and dropped into the alley behind the shop. The night air slapped her. Gravel bit her shoes. She ran, not toward the highway, toward town, toward the hospital lights, because if her mom was really at the loading dock, she had to be there. 5 minutes later, Maddie crept along the side of St. Agnes, hood up, raincoat too big, keys clenched in her fist. The loading dock sat behind the building, dim and empty, lit by a single buzzing light. A delivery van idled, hazards blinking. A figure stood near the open dock door, small, hunched. "Maddie," the figure called, voice weak. Maddie's chest cracked open. "Mom!" She stepped forward. The figure lifted its head. It wasn't her mother. It was a man in a hoodie, face half hidden, smiling like he'd been waiting. Maddie tried to turn. Hands came from behind, clamping over her mouth, yanking her arms back so hard her shoulders screamed. A zip tie bit into her wrists. Plastic tightened until her fingers went numb. She kicked, but a knee slammed into the back of her leg and she hit the wet concrete hard, a voice in her ear, calm and pleased. "Good girl." They hauled her up and shoved her toward the van. Maddie's heart was a trapped animal. She thrashed, twisting, trying to bite the hand over her mouth. The man in front leaned in close enough for her to smell peppermint gum and cigarettes. "We don't want to hurt you," he said softly. "We just want what your mom kept." Maddie shook her head violently. He sighed like she disappointed him. Then he pressed something cold against the inside of her wrist. Not a needle, a stamp, a hard press that burned. Maddie gasped into the hand over her mouth, pain flaring under her skin. The man pulled it away and smiled at what he'd left behind. A small, clean symbol on her wrist, dark and crisp against pale skin. A little bird. The bluebird. The inside of the van smelled like wet rubber and cheap cologne. Maddie's wrists were cinched behind her back so tight her hands tingled and throbbed, and the zip tie bit deeper every time the road bumped. A rag was shoved between her teeth, not to suffocate, just to keep her from being heard. The man in the hoodie sat across from her on a cargo bench, elbows on knees, smiling like this was a business meeting. Another guy drove. A third rode shotgun, shoulder turned halfway back so he could keep an eye on her. Maddie tried to kick, but her ankle got trapped under a toolbox and she nearly rolled off the bench. The hoodie man caught her by the collar, gentle in the way that made it worse. "Easy," he said. "You make a mess, you make it harder." Maddie glared at him, eyes burning. He reached for her wrist and turned it under the dim dome light, admiring the fresh mark, dark, crisp, a little bird. "Pretty, right?" he murmured. "Now you match the place you couldn't stay away from." Maddie shook her head hard, the gag rubbing raw against her gums. The man sighed. "You don't have what we need. That's fine. You're not the package. You're the receipt." He nodded toward the front. "Drive." The van pulled out, hazards off now, blending into the rain like it belonged on the road. Behind them, St. Agnes's loading dock returned to empty silence. At the same time, 5 miles away, the tire and tow shop was still echoing with metal and breath and pain. Duke shoved a man face first onto the concrete and pinned him with a boot between the shoulder blades. The man's hands scrabbled for traction, leaving wet streaks in old oil. "Where's the girl?" Duke snapped. The guy spat blood and laughed, breathless. "She left." Duke leaned down, voice cold. "Say that again." The guy's laughter died when he saw Duke's eyes. She ran, like you knew she would." Duke's head whipped toward the office door. It hung slightly ajar. "Son of a—" Duke growled, already moving. He slammed into the office. The window was open. Rain blew in. Keys were gone from the hook. The chair was knocked back like someone had grabbed and moved fast. Duke turned and roared, "Rook!" But Rook wasn't there. Rook was outside St. Agnes, crouched in a dark SUV 2 blocks away, watching the building through a rain-streaked windshield. One of Duke's guys had set him up with wheels that didn't belong to him and a burner that didn't have his name. His phone buzzed once. Duke's number. Rook answered instantly. "Talk." "You lose her?" Duke's voice was clipped, furious, trying not to sound scared. Rook's jaw locked. "She was with you. She got a text. She slipped out during the hit. She's gone." Rook's grip tightened until the phone creaked. "I told you to keep her inside." Duke snapped back. "I told you she'd run. She's a kid." Rook didn't argue. He didn't waste a breath on blame. His eyes stayed on the hospital, scanning shadows, watching every vehicle that slowed too long. Where'd she go? Rook asked. The hospital, Duke said. That's what the text said. Loading dock. Rook's gaze sharpened. I'm already here. Duke went quiet for half a second. You see her? Rook's eyes flicked to the far side of the building, then to a delivery lane that fed into the dock. No, he said, voice turning hard. But I see the play. What play? Duke demanded. Rook's eyes narrowed at a van turning onto the side street. White, plain, no company logo, moving too smooth. They're not trying to keep her, Rook said. They're trying to move her. The van slowed at the corner like it was checking for cops, like it wasn't afraid of cops. Rook's jaw tightened. They're leaving right now. He hung up without goodbye and started the engine. The SUV rolled out, lights off, tracking the van at a distance. Rain blurred everything. Street lights smeared into yellow halos. The van turned onto the main road that led out of Dry Creek toward Old County land, storage rows, warehouses, nothing but dark fences and forgotten businesses. Rook followed, not too close. He knew how this worked. He'd lived long enough to know the difference between a mistake and a trap. 2 miles out, the van signaled, like it wasn't even hiding, then turned into an industrial park with a rusted gate that never fully closed. Rook eased in behind. The van rolled past a shuttered furniture warehouse and stopped beside a loading bay with no markings. The driver killed the engine. Rook stopped 100 feet back, tucked behind a row of dead pallets. He sat still and listened. No music, no idle, no laughing. Professional. Then, the side door of the van slid open. 2 men stepped out first, scanning the lot. Rook recognized one of them immediately, because he'd seen that same posture in a hallway 2 decades ago. The same confidence, the same certainty that the world would step aside. Rook's pulse dropped low and heavy. He didn't think. He moved. He slipped out of the SUV and cut through the rain along the warehouse wall, staying in shadow. The men by the van kept their eyes on the lot and their backs toward the bay, which told Rook everything. They didn't expect trouble here, because this place was theirs. Rook reached the loading bay door. It was half open, chain hanging loose like it had been used recently. He slid inside without sound. The warehouse smelled like dust, damp cardboard, and something chemical. Cleaner used too often. A single work light hung in the middle of the floor, casting a bright circle. And in that circle, Maddie. She was on her knees, wrists bound behind her, gag still in her mouth, hair plastered to her face. A man stood over her with a phone in his hand, filming like he was making a point. The hoodie man crouched beside her, smiling. Do you understand what you are? He asked her softly. You're leverage, that's all. Your mom hid something. She did that because she thought she was smarter than the town. She forgot the town has patience. Maddie made a muffled sound, shaking her head. He sighed, then touched the birthmark on her wrist with 2 fingers like it belonged to him. This means you're ours until the debt is paid. Rook felt something hot flash behind his eyes. The hoodie man stood and turned his head slightly, as if he sensed a shift in the air. Rook stepped into the light. For 1 clean second, everything froze. The hoodie man's smile twitched. Well, he said, surprised, he showed up. Rook didn't speak. He walked forward, slow, shoulders squared, eyes empty of mercy. The man filming lifted the phone higher. This is gonna be, Rook surged. He covered the distance in 2 strides and drove his fist into the filmer's throat. The phone flew. The man crumpled, choking, hands clawing at his neck. One of the guards reached for his waistband. Rook pivoted and slammed his forearm into the guard's elbow before the weapon cleared. Bone popped. The guard screamed. The other guard rushed in. Rook ducked, grabbed the guard's wrist and twisted until the man's body followed the torque, then drove him face first into the concrete with a sound that made Maddie flinch even through the gag. The hoodie man backed up, hands raised like he was calm. Easy, Rook. We're not trying to hurt the kid. Rook's voice finally came out, low and shaking with rage. Take the gag off. Hoodie man's eyes flicked to Maddie, then back. After we talk. Rook took 1 more step. The hoodie man's smile returned, thinner. You want to be the hero again? Go ahead. But you know how this ends. The girl doesn't have what we need. You do. Rook's jaw worked. You touched her. Hoodie man shrugged lightly. We marked her, so she doesn't get any ideas. Rook moved so fast the hoodie man didn't even finish blinking. 1 hand grabbed the man's collar. The other drove into his stomach like a piston. Hoodie man's breath exploded out of him. His knees buckled. Rook hauled him up close, voice like gravel. "Who sent you?" Hoodie Man coughed, trying to smile through pain. "You already know." Rook tightened his grip until the man's feet barely touched the floor. "Say the name." The hoodie man's eyes watered, not from fear, pure pressure. "He doesn't like his name said by trash," he rasped. "He likes Mr. Caldwell." Rook went still. Maddie stared at him, eyes wide, because the name meant nothing to her, but the way it hit Rook meant everything. Rook dropped the hoodie man like a sack and moved to Maddie in one stride. He knelt, pulled the gag free gently, and Maddie sucked air like she'd been underwater. Her voice cracked. "Rook, I'm sorry." "Later," Rook said, cutting her free with a small blade she never saw him draw. "Can you stand?" Maddie nodded, trembling, and tried. Her legs nearly folded. Rook caught her before she hit the ground. His hand was firm on her shoulder, steadying her like she weighed nothing. "Walk," he said. "Now." Maddie stumbled with him toward the bay door. Outside, the rain had eased, but the lot lights made everything glare and sharp. And that's when Maddie saw it, not just the van, two more vehicles, rolling in slow from the far gate, headlights off, moving like they had all the time in the world. Rook saw them too. His face didn't change, but his body did, tightening, angling Maddie behind him. The hoodie man, still on the floor, laughed through spit. "Told you, patience." Rook backed Maddie toward the SUV, eyes scanning for a lane out. "Get in," he ordered. Maddie obeyed, fumbling the handle, climbing into the passenger seat with shaking hands. Rook sprinted for the driver's side. A door slammed in the distance. A voice called out, calm and familiar even from far away. "Rook!" Rook froze for half a heartbeat, because that voice wasn't one of the warehouse men. It was Deputy Ralston's. Ralston stepped into the light between the vehicles, hands loose at his sides, jacket open, badge catching the glare like a little shield. He smiled at Rook like they were old friends. "You always come back," Ralston called. "Doesn't matter how far you ride, you always come back to the same fire." Rook's hand tightened on the SUV door. Ralston's gaze slid to Maddie in the passenger seat, then down to her wrist, and his smile widened when he saw the bird mark. "There it is," he said softly, pleased. "Now we're all speaking the same language." Rook's voice came low, lethal. "You're going to let her go." Ralston chuckled. "You don't get to negotiate. You get to remember your place." Maddie's chest heaved. "Rook, who is Caldwell?" Ralston answered like he'd been invited. "A man your mother owes, a man who doesn't enjoy being owed." Rook slammed the door, started the engine, and gunned it. The SUV lurched forward, straight at the narrow gap between stacked pallets and a loading ramp. The vehicles behind flared their lights on, sudden and blinding, and the chase snapped alive. Maddie gripped the dash as the SUV bounced over broken concrete and shot out through the gate, rain spraying behind them. Ralston's voice carried through the open lot, one last line, calm as a promise. "Bring me what Lena hid, or I bring you her body." The SUV tore through wet back roads with the headlights off and the dash lights dimmed down to a faint glow. Maddie's hands were locked around the grab handle above the door, knuckles white, while the world outside blurred into black trees and sudden fence lines. Behind them, for a few miles, the chase stayed tight, two sets of headlights cutting through the rain like knives, not weaving, not panicking. Confident. Ralston's people. Rook drove like he was reading the road through the steering wheel. He didn't speed in straight lines. He sped in decisions, hard cuts, sudden slowdowns, turns that made no sense unless you already knew where the cameras were and where the cameras weren't. Maddie's throat burned. "There's still—" "I know," Rook snapped, then softened a fraction without looking at her. "Breathe through your nose." "How can you be calm?" "I'm not," he said. "I'm focused." He took a left onto a narrow lane that wasn't marked, just a strip of asphalt between two fields. No lights, no houses, no shoulders. The SUV bounced through potholes. Ahead, a low railroad crossing sign appeared in the headlights' faint spill. Rook's jaw tightened. "Hold on." He didn't stop at the crossing. He didn't slow. He hit it, and the SUV launched just enough for Maddie's stomach to float, then slammed down on the other side with a violent jolt. Maddie cried out. The tailing headlights behind them flared brighter, then dipped hard as the pursuers hit the same crossing too fast. Tires squealed, a horn blared, frustrated. Rook didn't look back. He turned onto a dirt farm cut that looked like it ended in mud. The SUV fishtailed, spraying grime, and vanished into a tunnel of trees. The headlights behind them overshot the turn and flew past. Rook waited, counting silently, then killed the engine. The sudden quiet was so complete, Maddie could hear rain dripping off the leaves and her own breath tearing in and out. Rook didn't move. He watched the road through the windshield. A minute later, distant tires hissed by on the main road, then another vehicle, then nothing. Rook exhaled once, deep and controlled, like he'd been holding his lungs shut. Maddie's voice cracked. "Are we safe?" Rook's eyes stayed on the dark. "We're not dead, that's all." He started the engine again, rolling forward slow, deeper into the trees. Maddie finally looked down at her wrist. The bird mark stared back at her, clean and dark, like it had always been there. Her stomach turned. "What is it, really?" Rook's jaw flexed. "A claim," Maddie swallowed. "Like a brand." Rook didn't answer, and the silence was worse than yes. Maddie's voice came smaller. "I left Duke. I ran. I'm sorry." Rook's hands tightened on the wheel. "You did what scared people do." "That's not an excuse," Maddie whispered. "No," he said. "It's a fact. We work with facts." She stared at him. "Are they going to hurt my mom?" Rook's eyes went hard. "They'll use her. If she's alive, she's a lever. If she's dead, she's a warning." Maddie's breath hitched. "Then we have to go back." "We're going forward," Rook said. He took the SUV out onto a bigger county road, lights still low, and after 2 miles he turned into a closed self-serve car wash with a chain across the entrance. He got out, hopped the chain, and rolled the SUV into the last bay. Concrete walls, no cameras. The sound of rain amplified and trapped. Rook killed the engine and finally turned to her fully. "Where's the envelope?" he asked. Maddie blinked. "My backpack." Rook reached behind her seat and yanked the backpack up into the light. "It was in the van. I grabbed it when you weren't looking." Maddie's throat tightened with relief so sharp it hurt. Rook unzipped it and pulled out the plastic-wrapped envelope with the shaking handwriting. For Rook. Only. He stared at it like it could bite. Maddie whispered, "Open it." Rook didn't move. "Rook," Maddie said again, voice firmer, "we don't have time for whatever you're feeling." His eyes flicked up, a flash of something raw, then he looked back down and tore the plastic open with careful fingers. Inside was a folded letter, a small photograph, and one more key, different from the storage key, thinner, older. Rook unfolded the letter. Maddie watched his eyes scan the page, watched his face tighten line by line like he was bracing against a blow. He finished reading and didn't speak. His throat worked once. Maddie leaned forward. "What does it say?" Rook held the paper tighter. "It says she knew this day would come." "That's not what it says," Maddie pressed. Rook's voice came low and flat. "It says Caldwell didn't just own the motel. He owned the county. He owned the judge that signed paperwork. He owned the deputy that made sure women disappeared clean." Maddie felt cold creep up her spine. "Ralston?" Rook nodded once, barely. Maddie pointed at the second key. "And that?" Rook glanced at it. "Safety deposit box key." Maddie's pulse spiked. "There's more evidence." "There's always more," Rook said, then lifted the photograph from the envelope. He stared at it, and the way his hands trembled made Maddie's chest tighten. "What is it?" she whispered. Rook turned it around. It was a Polaroid. Grainy, yellowed with age. Lena, 20 years younger, standing outside a motel room door with her face half turned away like she was trying not to be seen. A shadowy figure was beside her, only partially in frame. Not Caldwell, not Ralston, a biker, a cut, a patch, Rook. Maddie's throat went dry. "That's you." Rook's eyes stayed on the photo. "That's proof we were there." Maddie's voice shook. "My mom had a photo of you? Why?" Rook swallowed, and his voice came out rough. "Because she knew nobody would believe her without something that could ruin me too." Maddie stared. "Ruin you?" Rook's gaze lifted, finally meeting hers. "If we use what she hid, it burns Caldwell. It also burns anyone connected, including me, including my chapter. Anyone whose name shows up in the wrong place." Maddie's eyes stung. "So you won't do it?" Rook looked back at the photo, then folded it carefully and put it in his pocket like it mattered. I didn't say that, he murmured. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the motel wall key and the strip of paper with the storage location. Cedar Lane, he said. Unit 14. Maddie's breath caught. We're going now? We go now, Rook said, because they'll clear it the second they think I'm running. Maddie forced her voice steady. And after that? Rook looked at the phone Duke gave him. After that, we get the evidence out of our hands. Maddie frowned. To who? Rook's jaw flexed. Someone Caldwell can't buy fast enough. He typed with his thumb and put the phone to his ear as it rang. Duke answered on the second ring. You alive? Rook's voice was clipped. Where's St. Agnes? Duke exhaled hard. Deputies everywhere. Ralston's posted men at every entrance. We got eyes, but we can't get in without starting a war. Maddie's stomach dropped. My mom, Duke's voice softened a fraction. Kid, we haven't seen them move her yet. Rook's gaze went distant, calculating. They're not done, Duke asked. Where are you? Heading to Cedar Lane, Rook said. A beat of silence. Then Duke swore. You're walking into a black hole. Rook didn't blink. Bring me a contact. Someone outside this county. Someone who won't pick up a call from Ralston and suddenly forget my name? Duke hesitated. You want feds? I want a door Caldwell can't lock, Rook said. Give me something. Duke's voice lowered. There's a woman. Investigative. She's been sniffing around Caldwell's charity stuff for months. Tess Morgan. She's not local. She hates local. Maddie leaned forward. A reporter? Duke ignored her and spoke to Rook. You get me proof, I can get it to her. But if you bring heat to my door again, Rook cut him off. I already did. Silence. Then Duke said, text me when you're inside the unit. Rook hung up. Maddie's voice shook. We're trusting a reporter? We're trusting distance, Rook said. Caldwell owns this county. He doesn't own the whole world. He started the SUV and rolled out of the wash bay. Cedar Lane storage sat on the edge of old industrial land, a grid of metal doors behind chain link and a keypad gate. A single office light glowed in the rain like a lonely eye. Rook parked across the road behind an abandoned billboard and watched. 2 minutes. No movement. Then a car rolled by, slow, unmarked, dark, didn't stop, didn't turn in. Rook's jaw tightened. They're watching the approach. Maddie's mouth went dry. So what do we do? Rook opened the glove box and pulled out a knit cap and a pair of cheap glasses. You become invisible. He tossed them to her. Maddie hesitated. That won't hide my face. It hides your confidence, Rook said. Most people notice fear, not features. He stepped out into the rain and moved to the rear, popping the trunk. He pulled out bolt cutters, a small pry bar, and a hoodie with no markings. Maddie stared. You planned this. Rook didn't look up. I planned for the kind of men who never stop. They crossed the road low and fast, staying in the billboard's shadow until they reached the fence line. Rook didn't touch the gate. He went to the far side where the chain link met an old section of warped metal paneling. He wedged the pry bar in and bent it just enough for them to slip through. Inside the storage rows, everything smelled like wet metal and stale dust. The doors were numbered in black paint. No cameras visible on the lane itself, but Maddie felt watched anyway. They moved in silence until they found it. Unit 14. Rook knelt at the padlock. His hands hovered for a breath before he slid the motel key out and tried it. It didn't fit. Maddie's stomach sank. It's not. Rook didn't panic. He pulled the other key from the envelope, the one Lena included, and slid it into the padlock. It turned smooth. Click. Maddie's breath caught. Rook lifted the latch, braced, then rolled the metal door up. The unit smelled like old paper and cold plastic. A single metal shelving rack, a plastic bin, a footlocker, and, shoved into the back corner like somebody tried to forget it existed, a small safe. Maddie whispered, "This is it." Rook stepped inside and moved fast. He didn't rummage. He went straight to the safe as if he already knew what it would look like. He crouched, examined the front, and his eyes narrowed. "It's been opened," he said. Maddie froze. "What?" Rook touched the dial. It was still damp, fresh fingerprints smeared across the steel. "They were here," Maddie whispered. Rook's voice went low. "And they left something." He lifted the footlocker lid. Inside were folders, a thick ledger, envelopes stuffed with photos, and a small hard drive taped to the underside like someone wanted it hidden even from themselves. Maddie reached toward the ledger, then stopped when she saw the first page. names, dates, payments, and in the margin, a symbol stamped beside certain entries. A little bird. Maddie's wrist throbbed like it recognized its own mark. Rook's jaw tightened. He grabbed the hard drive and shoved it into his pocket. Then he yanked the ledger and the thickest folder out and stuffed them into Maddie's backpack. Maddie's hands shook. Is this enough? Rook's eyes flicked to the safe again. Not if the safe is empty. He stepped to it, grabbed the handle, and pulled. The safe door swung open. Inside was nothing but a single folded sheet of paper. Rook stared at it. Maddie's voice came thin. What is it? Rook reached in and unfolded the paper slowly. One line, printed clean, no signature. You can't outrun a county. Rook's face went blank. Then, outside the unit, a car door slammed. Maddie's blood turned to ice. Rook's head snapped toward the lane. Footsteps approached, slow, confident, close. And a familiar voice, calm as a smile, drifted through the rain. Unit 14, Deputy Ralston said, almost pleased. That's the one. Unit 14, Deputy Ralston said, almost pleased. That's the one. Rook slid the folded note back into the safe, shut it, and shifted so his body blocked the storage lane. Maddie crouched behind the shelving, backpack pressed to her chest, trying not to breathe loud. A flashlight beam swept the raised door, found Rook's boots. Come on out, Ralston called. Clean and easy. Rook stepped into the lane with his hands open, hood up, rain dripping off his beard. He let the overhead light catch his face on purpose. Ralston waited 10 feet away with 2 men behind him. No uniforms, just confidence. One held a pistol low at his thigh. The other filmed with his phone like they were shooting proof, not a crime. Ralston smiled. Storage units. You always did love places where nobody screams. Rook's voice was flat. Where's Lena? Ralston's smile thinned. Alive, for now. You marked a kid, Rook said. Ralston shrugged. Property gets marked. Rook's jaw tightened. Say it again. You don't scare me, Ralston said softly. Caldwell does. That's why you ran. Ralston nodded at the phone. Get his face. If he swings, I want it clean. Ralston looked back. You took something. Put it back and we forget you were here. Rook didn't move. You won't forget. Ralston's eyes hardened. Then we skip the polite part. You don't hand it over, Lena dies tonight. Rook lifted his chin. Show me she's alive. Ralston pulled out his phone and played a video. Lena in a hospital bed, pale, eyes open. 2 men stood near the door. Ralston's voice, sweet on camera, coaxed, Lena, sweetheart, just tell us where you put it. Lena's lips moved, no sound. Ralston ended the video and slid the phone away. Stubborn, still. Rook's eyes went cold. If she dies, you die. Ralston chuckled. That's not how ownership works. Rook's hand drifted toward his jacket pocket like he was about to surrender. The pistol man lifted his weapon an inch. Rook stopped. You want the drive? Ralston nodded. I want everything. Rook exhaled as if giving in. Then stepped closer. Check me. Make sure. Ralston came in slow, rain tapping his hat brim. Rook pulled out a small hard drive and held it up between 2 fingers. Ralston reached. Rook slapped a thin, clear packet onto Ralston's chest. Ralston blinked. The sharp stink hit a beat later. He looked down at the spreading dark patch on his shirt. Gasoline, he said, offended more than afraid. Rook clicked a cheap lighter open. A small flame bloomed. The pistol came up fully now. Drop it! Rook didn't. His eyes stayed on Ralston. Call the hospital. Tell them to back off Lena. Right now, Ralston's mouth tightened. You light me, Caldwell kills her anyway. Call, Rook said. Ralston held still, eyes locked on the flame. Then he pulled out his phone and hit a contact. Pull back. Not yet. Keep her alive. A pause. Because I said so. He ended the call and lifted his chin. Happy? Rook didn't lower the lighter. Tell your men to step back. Ralston flicked 2 fingers. His men shifted away. Ralston breathed through his nose, gasoline smell filling the lane. Now what, hero? Rook's voice stayed calm. We walk. Ralston's smile returned slowly. Walk where? You can't hide her. You can't hide yourself. Ralston's gaze drifted toward the unit opening, trying to catch a shadow. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're bringing what Lena hid to Bluebird, tonight. Rook's eyes narrowed. Why? Because Caldwell's hosting his charity gala, Ralston said. Cameras, donors, local news. He likes the town watching him look clean. His smile sharpened. And he wants the lesson public. Ralston's voice turned gentle, almost kind. 9 o'clock. You come alone. You hand it over. Lena keeps breathing. The kid walks away. Rook's lighter flame trembled. And if I don't? Ralston's kindness vanished. Then Lena stops, and the kid goes back to the men who stamped that bird on her wrist. Rook stared at him for a long beat. Then he snapped the lighter shut. Ralston's eyes gleamed with victory. Good. Rook tucked the hard drive into his pocket instead of handing it over. Ralston's smile twitched. You don't get to keep that. Rook's voice was flat. 9 o'clock. For a second, Maddie thought the gun would bark anyway, but Ralston didn't want blood here. Not on camera. Not with gasoline on him. He stepped aside. Go. Rook turned, reached into Unit 14, and pulled Maddie forward by the hood, gentle but urgent. Maddie stumbled into the lane, eyes huge. Ralston's gaze dropped to her wrist, and his smile softened like he was looking at a receipt. Tell your mom we'll take good care of her, he said. Maddie couldn't speak. Rook shoved her toward the fence cut and kept his body between her and the men. They slipped out into the rain and crossed to the SUV. Behind them, Ralston called, casual as a reminder. 9. Don't be late. Rook drove with the headlights off until the storage rows vanished behind trees. Only then did Maddie breathe. He's going to kill her, she whispered. Rook's jaw clenched. Not if we make the world hear him first. He typed fast on Duke's burner. Ralston, set Bluebird. 9 p.m. Need Tess Morgan ready. Need live drop. Send. Maddie stared at him. So we just walk into his party? Rook kept his eyes on the dark road ahead. We walk in long enough to get Caldwell talking. Then Tess drops it where Caldwell can't reach. Maddie's fingers rubbed the bird mark until her skin burned. And my mom. Rook's voice tightened. We keep her breathing by giving them something they can't bury. The burner buzzed once more, Duke's reply short and sharp. Tess ready. Stay dark. Rook read it and nodded to himself, then swung the SUV toward the highway and the warm glow of Bluebird's lights. Rook didn't drive straight in. He parked across the highway behind a dead billboard so they could watch Bluebird first. Up close, the motel looked fixed. New paint, warm lights, clean shrubs. The lot was busy with SUVs and dressed-up locals filing toward the office. A banner snapped in the rain. Caldwell Community Fundraiser. Maddie's stomach turned. That's him. Rook stared at the banner. That's his costume. The burner buzzed. Duke. Tess is pulling in. Silver Civic. A silver Civic slid into the diner lot beside them. A woman got out, hood up, camera bag across her chest, eyes sharp like she'd learned not to trust small towns. Tess Morgan, she said, glancing past Rook to Maddie. Her gaze caught the bird mark and tightened. So it's real. Rook showed her one page of the ledger, names, dates, payments, then shoved it back into the backpack. We need him on camera. Tess pulled a tiny clip mic from her pocket. This streams. 30 seconds connected and it auto-drops to the cloud. If they pat you down, it's done. Rook took it. They won't. Tess handed him a spare phone. If you can't talk, tap twice. I record remotely. Rook clipped the mic inside his collar, then pulled his cutoff and tossed it into the back seat like he was shedding skin. Plain dark shirt underneath. No patch, no name, just a man. He leaned to Maddie's window. You stay hidden with Duke's eyes. If anything goes wrong, you run to Tess's car. Maddie swallowed. Rook, what did you do back then? Rook paused, voice low. I didn't do enough. Then he shut the door and walked toward Bluebird through the rain, alone on purpose. Near the office, a photographer's flash popped, catching a tall man with silver hair shaking hands, smile perfect, eyes cold. Caldwell. Rook's steps slowed like the air got heavy, then steadied again. At the entrance, security turned, and Deputy Ralston stepped into view, relaxed, watching Rook approach like he'd been waiting for his favorite show. Rook reached the threshold. Ralston's smile widened. Right on time, he said. Ralston stepped close enough that his breath warmed Rook's ear. No friends, he murmured. No hero moves. You give Caldwell what he wants, you walk out. Rook kept his face blank. Where's Lena? Ralston's smile didn't move. Breathing? Because I'm in a good mood. A guard lifted his hands. Sir, we need to check you. Ralston watched Rook's collar like he could see through fabric. Quick. Rook raised his arms slowly. The guard patted his sides, his pockets, his waistband. Rook felt the mic against his skin and didn't blink. The guard found only a wallet and keys. Ralston's eyes narrowed anyway. You learn new tricks? Rook lowered his arms. I learned you like an audience. Ralston chuckled and guided him into the office lobby. Warm light, laughter, donation jars, a little step and repeat with Caldwell's name on it. People turned to look, some curious, some wary. A man like Rook didn't belong in their clean picture. Then Caldwell himself turned from a cluster of donors. His smile held, but his eyes changed when they landed on Rook. Ah, Caldwell said softly, like he'd been expecting this moment for 20 years. There you are. Caldwell's smile stayed perfect, but his eyes held a private satisfaction that didn't belong at a fundraiser. He looked Rook up and down like he was inspecting a tool he'd misplaced. I was beginning to think you'd finally learned to stay gone. Rook didn't glance around, didn't react to the donors staring. He kept his face neutral, the clip mic hidden under his collar like a heartbeat. I'm here, Rook said. Caldwell nodded, almost approving. Yes, you are. Deputy Ralston hovered a step behind, relaxed, hands loose, enjoying the scene. The guards at the entrance didn't move now. They didn't need to. This was Caldwell's room. Caldwell's people. Caldwell's air. Caldwell gestured toward a side hallway marked Staff Only. Let's not do this in front of polite company. Rook didn't move. Where's Lena? Caldwell's smile warmed, like he was a generous man being asked an inconvenient question. Resting. That's not an answer. Ralston leaned in, murmuring near Rook's ear, soft as a knife. Don't start your hero thing. Walk. Rook took a slow step forward, then another, letting Caldwell lead him down the hallway. Warm lobby noise died behind them. The scent changed from cheap cologne and catered food to mop water and disinfectant. They entered a back office that didn't match the motel's bright makeover. The room was older, darker, less renovated. A safe bolted to the wall, a desk with neat stacks of paperwork. A small monitor showing security camera feeds, parking lot angles, hallway angles, every door. Caldwell closed the door. Ralston stayed inside with them. Two guards stood outside, silhouettes through the frosted glass. Caldwell turned, still smiling. You know, it's funny. People love a good redemption story. The drifter who grew a conscience, the biker who did one decent thing. He tilted his head. They'd be so disappointed to learn what actually happened in room 17. Rook's eyes didn't flinch. You weren't there. Caldwell's smile didn't move. I was everywhere. He tapped the desk lightly. Sit. Rook stayed standing. Show me Lena. Caldwell sighed like he was indulging a child. He reached under the desk and pulled out a phone, thumbed the screen, and held it up. A live video feed. A hospital room. Not the one Maddie saw earlier. Different angle, different lighting. Lena lay on the bed, eyes open, skin pale. A man in scrubs stood near the IV pole. Another man, plain clothes, leaned against the wall with his arms folded. Lena's eyes shifted slightly, unfocused but awake. Caldwell's voice turned syrupy. Wave, Lena. The man in scrubs leaned in and touched Lena's shoulder. Not hard, just enough to make her obey. Lena's hand lifted a few inches, trembling. Maddie's mom didn't look like she was being beaten. She looked like she was being managed. Rook's jaw tightened so hard, a muscle jumped near his cheek. Caldwell ended the feed and put the phone down carefully. There. Alive. Rook's voice came low. You touch her again, and I burn this place down with you inside. Ralston chuckled. Listen to him. Caldwell's eyes flicked to Ralston, amused. He still thinks fear is currency. Then back to Rook. You didn't come here for threats. You came here to trade. Rook didn't answer. Caldwell opened a drawer and slid out a single sheet of paper. At the top was a clean letterhead. Below it, a typed statement. Near the bottom, a blank line for a signature. Ralston's smile widened when Rook saw it. Caldwell tapped the paper with one finger. A simple acknowledgement that you broke into my storage facility tonight, that you assaulted my employees, that you stole property. He paused. And that you acted alone. Rook stared at it. So you can arrest me clean. So I can resolve this clean, Caldwell corrected, still polite. The town sees justice. The donors keep donating. The motel keeps shining. He leaned forward slightly. And Lena keeps breathing. Rook's eyes stayed dead. And Maddie. Caldwell's smile softened, almost tender. Ah, the girl. Ralston's gaze sharpened at the name like he wanted to lick it. She's not supposed to be here, he murmured, pretending outrage. Caldwell ignored him and looked at Rook. You brought her into this. You led her right back to us. He shook his head as if disappointed. I was going to let her live small, but you made her loud. Rook's voice stayed controlled, but the heat underneath shook. Where is she? Caldwell's eyes flicked to the security monitor without turning his head. Not inside. Ralston's smile thinned. Not yet. Rook's gaze didn't leave Caldwell. You're proud of that birthmark, Caldwell's smile returned. It's a symbol. It's a brand, Rook said. Caldwell shrugged lightly. Call it whatever you need to call it so you can sleep. He leaned back in his chair. The bird means a dead exists. It means the county remembers. Rook's eyes narrowed. You stamp kids now? Caldwell's expression hardened for the first time, the nice mask slipping just a hair. Don't say it like that, he warned, voice still quiet. This isn't violence, it's order. Ralston laughed under his breath, like he loved hearing Caldwell say the quiet part out loud. Rook leaned forward a fraction. Order. That's what you call girls disappearing. Caldwell's eyes chilled. Careful. Rook didn't blink. Say it. Say what you did in room 17. Silence dropped heavy. Ralston watched Rook like he was waiting for him to get himself killed. Caldwell studied him, calculating. Then Caldwell smiled again, smaller, sharper. You think you're clever, he said softly. You think you can bait me into confession. He nodded toward the ceiling, toward the walls, toward the entire building. This place has cameras, Rook. Always has. You want to play with recordings? I have recordings. Rook's throat tightened. He didn't move. Caldwell continued, voice calm. I can pull the footage of you walking into that room 20 years ago. I can pull the footage of you dragging a man out. I can pull the footage of Lena running out half-dressed, crying. He shrugged. And the town will believe what I tell them to believe. Ralston's eyes gleamed. He's right. They always do. Rook's voice came rough. You're going to frame me for saving her? Caldwell spread his hands as if apologetic. I'm going to restore the narrative. The motel owner protects the community. The biker threatens it. He leaned in again. You take the fall, and I don't have to touch Lena. You understand? I don't want to touch her. The lie was so smooth it almost sounded sincere. Rook's eyes stayed on Caldwell's face. You already touched her. Caldwell's smile tightened. Only because you made it necessary. Ralston stepped closer to Rook, voice low. Sign the paper. Give Caldwell what he wants. Walk away breathing. It's a good deal. Rook looked at the paper again, then back at Caldwell. And the evidence Lena hid. Caldwell's eyes flicked to Rook's chest, then to his pockets. You brought it. Rook didn't deny it. You want it. Caldwell nodded once. All of it. The ledger, the drive, the photographs. He smiled, patient. Then you sign. Rook's voice stayed calm. If I sign, you kill Lena anyway. Caldwell's smile barely moved. I don't kill. I manage outcomes. Rook's gaze went colder. You'll manage hers. Caldwell's eyes sharpened. Rook, you're not in a position to accuse me of morality. Rook let that sit. Then he said quietly, You're right. Ralston blinked, surprised. Caldwell's smile widened, thinking he'd won. Rook reached into his pocket slowly and pulled out the small hard drive. He set it on the desk between them like it was nothing. Caldwell's eyes locked on it. Ralston's hand drifted toward his belt. Instinct. Rook kept his voice even. I'll sign. Caldwell's smile warmed. Good. Rook put his hand over the paper. But first, one thing. Caldwell lifted a brow. You're not in the position to negotiate. Rook didn't look away. You like being clean. You like being admired. So tell me something. His voice stayed steady, almost conversational. Why keep the motel at all? If you're so respectable, why keep a place like Bluebird? Caldwell stared at him for a beat, then chuckled. Because it's a landmark. It's a trap, Rook said. Ralston's smile faded. Watch your mouth. Rook kept his eyes on Caldwell. You keep it because it reminds people who owns them. Caldwell's gaze narrowed, annoyed but intrigued. You think you know me. Rook's voice stayed low. I know you need it. You need room 17 because it's where the county learned to obey. Caldwell's jaw tightened. Room 17 is just a number. It's your favorite, Rook said. For the first time, Caldwell's nice mask slipped enough for something ugly to show through. Not rage, pride. He leaned back and folded his hands. You know what the problem with people like you is? He asked softly. You mistake your disgust for power. Rook said nothing. Caldwell continued, voice quiet, controlled. Bluebird is a system. It is a pressure valve. It's a place where bad decisions become manageable. His smile returned, thin and satisfied. It keeps the rest of the county clean. Ralston let out a soft breath that sounded like agreement. Rook's eyes didn't move. So when Lena tried to leave, Caldwell cut him off, still smiling. Lena tried to steal from the system. She was a kid, Rook said. Caldwell shrugged. She was property in motion. Ralston's mouth curved like he enjoyed that phrase. Rook's throat tightened. The mic under his collar felt like it was burning. Caldwell tapped the desk near the hard drive. Now, sign. Rook picked up the pen. Outside in the rain-dark lot, Tess sat hunched in the silver Civic, eyes locked on her phone. The tiny levels on her screen danced with Caldwell's voice. Clear enough, clean enough. Her lips parted. Oh my God, she whispered, recording everything. Beside her, Maddie sat low in the back seat, hoodie pulled tight, shaking. Every word Caldwell said hit her like a slap, every calm syllable. Tess didn't look away from the screen. This is him, she murmured. This is the county talking. Maddie's hand drifted to her wrist, to the bird mark. It throbbed like it was listening. Back in the office, Rook lowered the pen tip to the paper. Then he stopped. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. Do it. Rook looked up. You said you manage outcomes. Caldwell's smile tightened. Yes. Rook's voice stayed calm. Then manage this. Call your man at the hospital. Put Lena on speaker. Right now. I want to hear her breathe while I sign. Ralston stiffened. No. Caldwell held Rook's gaze. For a beat it looked like he might refuse out of pure control. Then he smiled and picked up the phone. Fine. If it helps you comply. He tapped a contact and put it on speaker. The line rang once, twice. Then a man answered quiet. Yeah. Caldwell's tone stayed polite. How's our patient? A pause, a soft rustle, like someone moving closer to a bed. Then Lena's breathing came through the speaker, thin, rough, but there. Maddie's throat tightened so hard she almost made a sound in the Civic. Rook didn't move. Tell her to speak. Caldwell's smile hardened. Lena doesn't get to speak. Rook's eyes lifted. Then you do. Caldwell's gaze sharpened. Excuse me? Rook's voice stayed even. Tell your man what to do if she refuses again. Say it plainly. Ralston's hand hovered near his belt now, tension spiking. Caldwell stared at Rook, understanding flickering. Too late. Rook didn't blink. Say it. Caldwell's smile thinned to nothing. For one heartbeat, the room went dead quiet, except for Lena's breathing through the speaker. Then, Caldwell spoke into the phone, voice low and crisp, like giving instructions to staff. If she won't cooperate, he said, stop the drip, slow her down, and make it look natural. Ralston's eyes widened a fraction, like even he hadn't expected Caldwell to say it that clean. Rook's face went utterly still. Outside, in the Civic, Tess's screen spiked as the words landed in perfect audio. Her hand shook as she hit a button, eyes wide. It's uploading, she whispered. Maddie's stomach dropped through the floor. Back in the office, Caldwell realized what he'd just done. His gaze snapped to Rook's collar, 1 millimeter too late, and his face changed for the first time into something real. What did you bring in here? Caldwell whispered. Ralston lunged forward, grabbing at Rook's shirt front. Rook moved. He slammed his forearm into Ralston's throat and drove him back into the wall hard enough to rattle the camera monitor. The hard drive skittered off the desk and bounced on the floor. Caldwell's hand shot toward a drawer. Rook kicked the desk chair into him, knocking Caldwell's hip into the edge. Caldwell grunted, stumbling, and Rook snatched the hard drive up off the floor in one motion. Outside the office, the guards reacted. Boots, shouting, a radio crackling. Ralston clawed at his neck, red-faced, furious. Get him! Caldwell's phone was still on speaker. Lena's breathing was still there, thin, scared. Then a new voice cut in on the line, urgent. "Sir, something's happening. Someone's in the room." Caldwell's eyes went wide. And through the speaker, Lena made a small, broken sound, half breath, half cry, right before the call went dead. Rook hit the hallway like a battering ram. He didn't run straight toward the lobby. He ran at an angle, past the staff-only sign, past a linen cart, past a door marked electrical, because Caldwell's whole building was designed to funnel people into cameras and witnesses. Rook refused to give him either. Behind him, Ralston's voice tore through the back corridor. "Get him! Close the front!" Boots pounded. A radio crackled. Somewhere a door alarm chirped once, then screamed. Rook shoved into the electrical room and yanked the door shut behind him. The space smelled like hot dust and old wire. He didn't have time to breathe. He moved his fingers under the clip mic at his collar, ripped it out and jammed it deep into a junction box gap behind a conduit, out of sight, still streaming for a few more seconds if it could. Then he stepped back out. The back corridor was already filling with staff and security, faces confused, mouths open, people looking for someone to tell them what was happening. Rook used that. He lowered his shoulders, blended into the movement, and burst through a service door that dumped him into the lobby. Warm light. Donors. Smiling locals with paper cups of punch, pretending they didn't see the tension because nothing bad happens here. Caldwell's voice rose above the room, smooth and bright, the way you talk when you want people to stay calm. "Everyone, we're experiencing a minor security issue," Caldwell announced, stepping onto a small platform near the banner. "Please remain inside. We have everything under control." Rook saw him from across the lobby. Calm face, perfect suit. A man who could order a death and then smile for a photo. Ralston appeared behind Caldwell, at the platform edge, hand at his belt, eyes scanning the crowd with predatory focus. And then Ralston's gaze found Rook. For a split second, everything froze. Ralston's mouth tightened. He pointed without pointing, a tiny motion of 2 fingers toward the front entrance. Guards began to move. Rook didn't push through the crowd. He didn't shove old ladies or knock over tables. He moved like he belonged there, like he was late to donate. He went straight toward the donation table, grabbed a glossy brochure, and walked past the photographer's flash like he was just another guest. The flash popped again. In the harsh white blink, Rook saw the security cameras above the lobby corners and realized Caldwell had already switched the narrative. Rook was the threat. Rook was the criminal. Rook was the reason these good people needed protection. Rook reached the front doors. A guard stepped in. "Sir, we need you to—" Rook didn't stop walking. He stepped close enough that the guard smelled rain and sweat and something older. "You touch me," Rook murmured, "and your boss's audio is already in the cloud." The guard blinked, uncertain. Rook used that half-second and slid past him into the rain. Outside, the parking lot looked festive. String lights, a banner, clean shrubs, until you saw the men standing too still under the overhangs and the unmarked cars placed like chess pieces. Rook moved fast now, cutting left along the rooms rather than running straight for the road. He didn't go toward Tessa's Civic. Not yet. He needed to pull eyes off her. From across the lot, Ralston stormed out into the rain, shouting into his radio. "Lock down the exits! He's in the lot!" Donors began to spill out, confused, craning their necks. Caldwell followed, still wearing his public smile like armor. "Deputy, let's keep this calm," Ralston snapped. "He just recorded you telling a man to kill a patient." Caldwell's smile didn't flicker in public. He leaned in close to Ralston's ear, voice too low for anyone else. And whatever he said made Ralston's expression harden into something even colder than rage. Rook didn't wait to find out. He slipped between 2 parked SUVs, ducked behind a row of rooms, and crossed the lot's far edge where the light died. Then he sprinted. Across the highway shoulder toward the dead billboard. Tess saw him first. She'd been watching her phone like it was a live grenade. When Caldwell's "Stop the Drip" line hit, she'd seen the upload bar complete, and she'd felt a wave of nausea so heavy she almost gagged. "It's out," she whispered to herself. "It's actually out." Her spare phone buzzed, screen lighting up with notifications, shares, reposts, comments, strangers screaming through text. Maddie sat low in the back seat, shaking, eyes wide and wet. "My mom, they—" Tess didn't look away from the screen. We need to get you out of here. We need to get my mom, Maddie rasped. Tess finally turned and looked at Maddie's face, really looked, and the bird mark on her wrist, angry and dark. Your mom is the lever, Tess said quietly. You're the lock. Maddie swallowed hard. Rook said he'd keep her breathing. Tess's jaw tightened. Then we make it expensive to kill her. Rook appeared at the billboard, rain running off him in sheets. He yanked open the Civic's passenger door and leaned in. Drive, he said to Tess, now. Tess didn't argue. She started the engine, tires squealing wet as she pulled out. Rook slid into the front passenger seat, twisted back to Maddie. You okay? Maddie's voice cracked. They cut the call. I heard her. Then it went dead. Rook's face tightened like something inside him snapped into a new shape. We're going to St. Agnes. Tess's eyes flashed to him. That hospital's crawling. Rook nodded. That's why we don't go inside. Maddie choked. Then how do we... Rook's voice stayed steady, controlled. We forced them to bring her out. Tess gripped the wheel. How? Rook stared at the road ahead through rain. By making Caldwell's world catch fire. He took Duke's burner from his pocket and typed one message with brutal precision. Send bikes to St. Agnes. Block exits, no guns, just bodies. He hit send. Tess glanced at him. You're calling bikers to a hospital. I'm calling witnesses, Rook said. Tess's phone vibrated again and again, notifications multiplying. She glanced down, swerved slightly, corrected. This is spreading fast, she muttered. People are tagging state outlets. Someone just posted a screen recording. Maddie's breath hitched. So, he can't bury it. Tess's eyes were hard. He'll try. They reached the hospital area within minutes. St. Agnes glowed through the rain like a lie. Bright, sterile, calm. But the parking lot wasn't calm. 2 county cruisers sat near the entrance. A third idled by the side service road. Men moved under umbrellas like they were waiting for something to arrive. Rook leaned low in his seat. See that side lane? He asked Tess. Tess nodded. Loading dock access. Rook's eyes narrowed. That's where they'll move her if they move her. Maddie's voice shook. They can't just... They can, Rook said. They already have. Tess pulled into a small lot across from the hospital and killed the headlights. Rain ticked on the roof. Rook watched. 30 seconds, a minute. Then, through the gap between 2 buildings, a stretcher appeared in the side lane. Maddie's lungs locked. Mom, she whispered. Lena was on it, pale, eyes half open, oxygen line in her nose. A nurse walked beside the stretcher, hands tight on the rail. 2 men in scrubs followed, and 1 man in a county jacket walked slightly behind them, relaxed, controlling the pace. Deputy Ralston. Maddie's whole body shook. They're moving her. Rook's voice went flat. They're relocating the lever. Tess's fingers tightened on the wheel. What do we do? Rook opened the glove box and pulled out the hard drive and the thick folder from the backpack Maddie had held. He didn't hand them to Tess. He held them in his own palm. Start streaming, he said. Tess blinked. What? Rook's eyes didn't move from the stretcher. Live. Now. Your face? My face? The hospital? Everything? Tess swallowed. If you go live, they'll grab you. Rook nodded once. Good. Maddie's voice cracked. No, Rook turned and looked at her, and Maddie saw the decision there, already made. If I stay hidden, they move her, and she disappears behind paperwork. If I walk into the light, they have to choose between kidnapping a patient on camera or letting her go. Tess stared at him. You're going to sacrifice yourself. Rook's eyes went distant for a beat. I already did. 20 years ago. Maddie shook her head violently. You don't even know me. Rook's voice softened just a hair. I know your mom. Tess's throat worked. Then she lifted her phone, thumb trembling, and hit go live. Her screen filled with rain and hospital lights and her own shaky breath. Listen, she said, voice tight, forcing steadiness. My name is Tess Morgan. We are outside St. Agnes Hospital in Dry Creek County. If anything happens to us, this is being recorded and uploaded. Rook pushed his door open. Cold rain hit his face. He stepped out into the lot, plain shirt soaked instantly, hands visible. Tess's camera followed him. Maddie pressed her face to the back window, heart hammering. Rook walked toward the side lane like he had nothing to hide. Ralston saw him almost immediately. Ralston's head turned, his posture changed. The men in scrubs stiffened. The nurse's eyes widened in fear. Ralston moved to intercept, fast, hand at his belt. Rook didn't stop. Tess's livestream caught everything. Rain, hospital sign, the stretcher, Lena's pale face, Ralston's badge glinting. Ralston reached Rook and hissed, "You got a death wish?" Rook lifted his chin slightly so the camera caught Ralston's face. "I've got witnesses," Rook said. Ralston's eyes flicked to Tess's phone, then to the steady stream icon, then back to Rook. His mouth tightened. "You can't be here," Ralston snapped louder now for the cameras. "Step away from the patient." Rook didn't move. "Where are you taking her?" "Back inside," Ralston lied instantly. Rook's eyes went to the men in scrubs. "You're not hospital," he said, loud enough for Tess's mic. "You're his." One of the scrub men flinched, reflexive. Ralston's smile forced itself back on. "Sir, you're trespassing and interfering with medical care." Rook nodded slowly, as if accepting the words. Then he looked at Lena. Lena's eyes found him, weak but aware. Her lips parted, trying to form something. "Maddie," Lena rasped, a breath more than a word. Maddie's knees almost collapsed in the Civic. "Mom!" Tess's camera caught Lena's face, caught the fear, caught the way the nurse looked like she wanted to cry. Ralston leaned down toward Lena, voice too quiet for most, except the mic Tess had on her phone. "Don't speak," Ralston murmured. Rook's face went dead cold. "Don't touch her." Ralston straightened, eyes hard. "Turn off the stream." Tess's voice called from the Civic, shaking but loud. "We are live. We are recording. Do not touch that patient." Heads turned. A few hospital staff in the distance paused, noticing the crowd, the tension. Ralston realized he was being watched by more than just a biker and a reporter now. He was being watched by civilians who would remember. His jaw worked, fury simmering under the mask. Then, like a siren, a deep rumbling sound rolled into the lot. Motorcycles, a pack, 6, 8, 10, sweeping in along the front road, engines loud and unavoidable. They didn't swarm, they didn't threaten, they simply arrived and stopped at the lot edges like living barricades. Duke swung off his bike first, eyes scanning. He saw Rook, saw the stretcher, saw Ralston. His face tightened into something grim. He didn't raise a hand, he didn't swing a tool. He just stood there, arms at his sides, an unmovable witness. More bikes rolled in behind him, more bodies, more eyes. Ralston's gaze flicked over them, calculating, and for the first time he looked uncertain. Because this wasn't a back alley, this was a hospital, and the whole thing was being streamed. Ralston stepped closer to Rook, lowering his voice to a hiss. "You think this saves her? Caldwell will bury you under charges until you rot." Rook didn't blink. "Do it." Ralston's eyes narrowed. "You want to be a martyr." Rook's voice was flat. "I want her to live." Ralston stared at him for a long beat, then made a choice. He raised his voice, performing now. "Sir, you are under arrest for assault, trespassing, and interference with medical care." Rook held still. "Good." Ralston snapped his hand out, grabbing Rook's wrist, twisting him toward the pavement. Maddie's breath hitched. Duke stepped forward one pace, just one, then stopped, letting the camera see he didn't touch anyone. Ralston yanked Rook's arms behind his back and slapped cuffs on, tight. The metal click echoed in the rain like a verdict. Rook didn't fight. He didn't resist. He didn't give Ralston the satisfaction of a struggle. Ralston leaned close to Rook's ear again. "Now turn over the evidence," he whispered, "and maybe I let the girl see her mom one more time." Rook's gaze slid to the Civic, to Maddie's face pressed against glass. Then he looked at Ralston, voice low and steady. "I already gave it away." Ralston froze. Rook lifted his chin toward Tess's phone, still streaming, still recording. "You can't stop what's already out." Ralston's expression tightened into pure hatred, and at that exact moment, hospital staff pushed forward, real staff now, drawn by the noise, the bikes, the live stream. A doctor in a white coat stepped to the stretcher and barked, "Who authorized moving this patient? Get her back inside, now!" The nurse's face crumpled with relief. She grabbed the rail and began rolling Lena back toward the doors, away from Ralston's men. Ralston turned sharply. "Stop!" The doctor's voice cut through him, loud and official. "Deputy, step away from my patient." Ralston hesitated, eyes flicking to the camera, to the bikes, to the watching civilians. He stepped back. Lena was wheeled toward the entrance, disappearing into the hospital light. Maddie's vision blurred with tears, relief so sharp it felt like pain. Rook watched her go, still in cuffs, rain running down his face like he couldn't tell what was water and what wasn't. Ralston yanked him toward the cruiser. "You think this is over," he muttered. "Caldwell will crush you." Rook's voice stayed calm. "Then let him try." Ralston shoved him into the back seat and slammed the door. Inside the cruiser, through the wet glass, Rook found Maddie's eyes one last time across the lot. He mouthed 3 words, slow, deliberate, so she'd understand. "Get Tess out." Then the cruiser pulled forward into the rain, and the hospital lights swallowed it. The cruiser's taillights shrank into the rain until they were just 2 red smears and then nothing. Maddie stayed pressed to the Civic's back window, breathing in short, broken pulls, like if she stopped moving air, she'd fall apart. Her mom was back inside, alive, for now. Rook was gone, taken, for real. Tess ended the stream only when the signal started to stutter from overload. Her screen was a mess of notifications and reposts and furious strangers screaming in text. "They can't shove this back in the box," Tess muttered, thumb flying. "State outlets already picked it up. People are clipping the audio. It's everywhere." Duke watched the hospital doors like he expected Ralston to come back out swinging. Bikes idled in a loose ring, not threatening, just present. Witnesses with engines. Maddie wiped her face with the sleeve of the borrowed hoodie and forced words out. He said, "Get you out." Tess looked over her shoulder. "He told you that?" Maddie nodded, voice thin. He mouthed it. Duke's eyes narrowed. "He knows what they'll do next." "What?" Maddie asked. Duke didn't answer right away. He stared at the cruisers, at the side lanes, at the places men liked to stand when they had permission to do bad things. Then he said, "Caldwell can't erase what went live, so he'll try to control the story with the only thing he's got left." Maddie's stomach turned. "Rook." Duke nodded once. "He'll make Rook the monster." Tess's phone buzzed hard. A new headline notification flashed across her screen, words half visible under raindrops. She swore softly. "They're already moving." Maddie leaned forward. "What does it say?" Tess angled the screen so Maddie could see. A local station post, written fast, careless, obedient. Breaking, motorcycle gang. Member arrested after disrupting community fundraiser and interfering with hospital care. Maddie's chest tightened. "They're calling him a gang member like he attacked my mom." Duke's mouth twisted. "Because that's Caldwell's first move. Make the town afraid. Fear makes people forget what they heard." Tess typed furiously, attaching the cleanest clip. Caldwell ordering the drip stopped, Caldwell saying, "Make it look natural." Caldwell calling Lena property in motion. She sent it to 3 numbers she didn't announce. "We go bigger," Tess said, voice tight. "State, federal, medical board, everyone." Maddie shook with anger now, not just fear. "And my mom?" Duke jerked his chin toward the entrance. "She's safer inside with eyes on her. We keep eyes. We keep the stream. We keep people looking." Maddie swallowed. "But Rook," Duke cut her off, gentle but firm. "Kid, you want to save him? Then you do what he can't do from the back of a cruiser." Maddie stared. "What?" Duke leaned closer, voice low. "You tell the truth where they can't punch it." Maddie's hands trembled. I'm just a kid." Duke's gaze didn't soften. "You're the reason he walked into the light." A nurse burst through the hospital doors, scanning the lot. She spotted the bikes, flinched, then saw Maddie in the back seat and ran toward the Civic anyway, rain soaking her scrubs. "Maddie?" she gasped. Your mom's asking for you." Maddie's heart jumped. "Is she okay?" The nurse nodded fast. "She's stable." But her eyes flicked toward the road where the cruiser disappeared. "They're trying to get an order to move her again. The doctor is fighting it, but they're making calls." Tess's jaw tightened. "Who's making calls?" The nurse swallowed. "Caldwell's attorney is here. They're saying your mother is a vulnerable adult being influenced by criminals." Maddie went cold. "Criminals?" Duke's face hardened. "So they'll try to separate her from anyone who can speak." Tess nodded once, decision locked in. "Then we speak louder." Maddie looked at the nurse. "Can I see her?" The nurse hesitated. "Yes, but you need to be quick. And you cannot bring..." You cannot bring all of this with you. She glanced at the bikes, at Duke. Maddie nodded. Just me. Duke leaned in toward Maddie through the open door, voice controlled. You go in, you tell her you're here. You get anything she hasn't said, names, places, anything. He tapped Maddie's backpack lightly. And you do not hand that to anyone inside. Maddie's eyes filled. What if they take me? Duke's gaze sharpened. They won't. Not now. Too many cameras, too many eyes. He paused. But you don't walk into a hallway alone. Nurse stays with you. The nurse nodded immediately, terrified but willing. I'll stay. Maddie slid out of the Civic, legs unsteady. Her wrist throbbed under the birthmark. She pulled her sleeve down over it like fabric could erase a claim. Tess grabbed Maddie's arm lightly. If anyone questions you, remember this. You're a minor. You ask for a lawyer. You say nothing else. Maddie swallowed and nodded, then followed the nurse into the hospital. Inside, the air was warm and sterile. The noise felt muted, like the building was trying to keep secrets. In the hallway, two men stood near the nurse's station in suits, whispering to a supervisor with tight lips. One of them held a folder with a familiar logo, Caldwell Community Fund. The nurse kept her head down and moved fast, guiding Maddie through a side corridor and into Lena's room. Lena looked smaller than ever, but her eyes latched onto Maddie like a hook. Mads, Lena rasped. Maddie rushed to the bedside and took her hand, careful of the IV line. I'm here. Lena's eyes filled. Where is he? Maddie's throat tightened so hard it hurt. They took him. Lena closed her eyes for a second. A tear slipped out and vanished into the pillow. I'm sorry, Maddie whispered. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry I... Lena squeezed her hand, weak but fierce. No. Listen to me. Maddie leaned in. Lena's voice came in thin fragments, like every word cost. Caldwell will try to move me. If they move me, you won't find me. Maddie's stomach dropped. Then we'll stop them. Tess, not Tess, Lena whispered, eyes sharp suddenly. Not just press. Her gaze flicked to the door. You need federal, medical, someone outside the county. Maddie nodded rapidly. We have a reporter. She's streaming. Lena's fingers tightened as much as they could. Good. But you need the box. Maddie blinked. What box? Lena swallowed, breath rattling. Deposit box. The key I gave you. It's not the only one. Maddie's pulse spiked. There's another key? Lena's eyes filled with pain and urgency. There's a second copy, in my old things, in the lining of the blue purse. Closet shelf, top. Maddie nodded fast, memorizing. Lena pulled air in, forced the next words out. The box has the original tape. Maddie froze. Tape. Lena nodded once. Audio. Room 17. Caldwell's voice. Ralston's voice. It's why I lived. Because I hid it. Maddie's chest cracked open. You recorded them? Lena's mouth trembled. I was a kid, but I was not stupid. I knew. No one would believe me. Maddie's eyes burned. Where's the box? Lena's voice dropped to a whisper. First State Bank, Dry Creek, box 26. Maddie felt her heart slam. We can get it. Lena squeezed her hand again. You don't go. Rook would say no. Maddie choked. Rook isn't here. Lena's eyes closed for half a second, and when they opened, they were full of guilt. He saved me, and he paid. He paid then. He's paying now. Maddie's voice broke. Why would Caldwell hate him so much? Lena stared at the ceiling like she couldn't look at Maddie for this part. Because Rook made him bleed. Maddie went still. What? Lena swallowed. That night, Caldwell's man tried to take me. Rook stopped it. There was a fight, and someone died. Maddie's breath stopped. Who died? Lena's eyes filled. Not Caldwell, not Ralston. Her voice fractured. A boy, a worker, someone they would have buried anyway. Maddie's stomach turned. Lena's fingers trembled. Rook took the blame. He let them think. He did it, because if they blamed me, they'd own me forever. Maddie stared, numb. So he's been carrying that for 20 years. Lena nodded once, tears sliding. And Caldwell never forgave him for making him look weak for one night. Footsteps passed outside the room, voices in the hallway. The nurse stiffened. Lena's eyes snapped back to Maddie, urgency returning. If they offer you a deal, if they tell you they'll free him if you give them the drive, you don't. Maddie shook her head, terrified. But Lena tightened her grip. You don't, because they'll take everything and still keep him. Caldwell keeps what he wins, Maddie whispered. Then how do we save him? Lena's gaze sharpened with the last of her strength. You make it impossible to keep him. Maddie swallowed. How? Lena's voice came like a knife. You put the tape in federal hands. In the hallway, the suited men's voices rose slightly. Maddie heard her own name float through the door. Minor, custody, protective. The nurse's face went pale. Lena heard it too. Her eyes widened. They're coming, Maddie's heart pounded. Mom, Lena squeezed her hand, eyes wet. Go, now, get Tess, get Duke, get the tape. Don't let them separate us. Maddie stood, shaking, and leaned down to kiss her mom's forehead. I'm not leaving you, Lena whispered. You have to. The nurse grabbed Maddie's elbow gently. We have to move. Maddie turned for the door and stopped dead. Deputy Ralston stood in the hallway, rain jacket now, hair damp, face calm like he'd never raised his voice in his life. 2 hospital security guards stood with him. A woman in a blazer held paperwork and a pen. Ralston's eyes slid over Maddie, landed on her sleeve, then dipped like he could see the bird mark through fabric. His smile was small and private. There she is, he said softly. We need a word, Maddie. Maddie backed up instinctively. Ralston lifted the paperwork. Just a quick protective custody form. Your mom's being influenced. You understand? Maddie's chest tightened. No. Ralston's smile thinned. Don't make this difficult. Maddie's eyes flicked to the nurse, to Lena's room, to the hall cameras. And then Maddie did the only thing that made sense. She raised her voice, loud, clear, shaking but strong, so the hallway heard her. I want a lawyer. I am a minor. Do not touch me. The security guards froze. Ralston's smile flickered. From down the hall, a doctor turned. A nurse stepped out of another room. Phones lifted, eyes fixed. Ralston's jaw tightened. Lower your voice. Maddie didn't. My mom is being held against her will. Your boss told them to make it look natural. It's on video. Ralston's eyes went hard. That video won't save you. Maddie's hands shook, but her voice stayed loud. I have a recording in a bank box. Federal will get it. For the first time, something real crossed Ralston's face. Not anger, alarm. His gaze sharpened, calculating fast. A bank box, he repeated quietly. Maddie felt the trap snap around her words too late. Ralston smiled again, but it wasn't warm now. It was hungry. Thank you, he said softly. He stepped forward. The security guards shifted, uncertain. And in that second, just 1 second, Maddie realized what she'd done. She'd just told the wrong man where the last bullet was hidden. Ralston lifted his hand toward her wrist. Maddie tried to step back. The hallway tilted. Somebody grabbed her elbow. Somebody else reached for her shoulder. Voices rose. The nurse shouted, Stop! Maddie's breath caught. And then, from outside the hospital, faint through walls and rain, engines revved louder, closer. Duke's people, witnesses. Ralston's eyes flicked toward the sound, irritation flashing. He leaned in close to Maddie's ear, voice so low only she could hear. You tell me the bank now, he whispered, or I move your mother tonight. Maddie's chest heaved. She looked past him through the hallway window and saw flashing lights arriving in the lot, not county cruisers. Different, faster, more official, state. Ralston saw them too. For the first time, his smile slipped completely. And in the same moment, Maddie's personal phone, still in her pocket, buzzed once, hard. A text from an unknown number. One last trade, tape for Rook, now. Maddie stared at the screen, blood roaring in her ears, and the hallway door to Lena's room clicked shut behind her with a soft, final sound. Then everything went white with a camera flash from someone filming, and the audio on Tess's live feed cut to a dead, abrupt silence.